step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use every comment, hate that makes my fuel. Gather up my energy and boom, I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with, giving my blood so I am relentless.
All right. Well, this is a Keep Hammering Collective podcast with Wayne Endicott. And this is, can you believe we're doing this?
Cam, I'm super honored. I can't believe you asked me to do this, really, honestly. I'm honored, you know.
Well, I mean, I wanted to anyway, but the public is pretty much demanding it because you've been such a integral part of the Lift, Run, Shoot series and just how you can explain archery, how you speak from the heart. Of course, I've known you forever.
Yeah.
And
we got some rich history.
We do. And you've always been the same. But for these people coming in and seeing you and seeing how genuine you are and how much you care and what a good teacher you are, people have been saying, you got to talk to Wayne Endicott. So here we are.
Okay. Here we go. You got me.
So, I mean, I don't even know where to start. You know, we've been friends I'll just set the stage, but Wayne bought the bow rack way back when we were young kids. I was, I think 19. How old were you when you bought it?
I believe I was 26 years old.
Oh, wait, no. The bow rack was there when I first started bow hunting.
Right.
You got it maybe a couple years later.
I think I was dealing for it in 89 and it went through, right after the first of the year. So.
Right. So I would have been maybe 20.
1989.
Yeah. And you were young or mid 20s basically. But how was that process? I mean, buying the bow rack.
Well, I knew other than just having a weakness for archery and bow hunting at a really young age, got out of high school, a bunch of buddies, that I was going to high school with. We all wound up working at Roseboro Lumber Company. And I just, all they did was talk about bow hunting. And so, it's just right after high school. I think it was my second job after high school, welded for a couple of years. And then we got a bow hunt. So of course we wound up hanging around down there at the bow rack, and I mean, back then, let alone we couldn't hunt up our car keys, let alone hit anything,
Right.
And the equipment was rough at best. And, we just pulled our hair out, just trying to make arrows hit a target. And, I was the kind of kid growing up that, there was Anderson Sporting Goods in town. Mm-hmm. It was like the sporting goods store. So as a kid, I'd talk my mom into stopping and then she couldn't find me because I'd be all over the store just looking
Right.
at stuff, And so I just this is a dream, to have a sporting goods store. This would be nothing better, And so, just as kids, we hung out at the bow rack. It was the next coolest thing to Anderson Sporting Goods. Ron Schreiber was there. Tony, oh my gosh, my mind slips me. But
I remember him.
Tony was the main guy there. Everybody loved Tony. And, we were just all enthralled in hanging out down there. And so, period of time went by and we were just trying to bow hunt. Mm-hmm. We were big bow hunters, couldn't hit nothing. I killed a buck.
You, Jeff Brooks,
Me,
Dwayne
Jeff Brooks, Dwayne Levitt. Yeah. You, Roy. Mm-hmm. I mean, but that you and Roy came along when I bought it.
Yeah.
But, the early days was basically just me and Brooks and Levitt, and we were just worthless. Oh my gosh.
You got to tell the story about when you painted your arrows.
Oh, that's crazy. So Steens Mountains loaded with deer. I'd grown up rifle hunting. Dad had rich history there. We've got a lot of history in the Steens. And so I told those guys, I go, look, we're going to the Steens. First year of bow hunting, we're going to the Steens. And so all year we shoot game getter 2s.
Yeah.
Well, they had anodization, horrible anodization.
They were orange, right?
No, they were kind of green.
Oh, greenish color. Okay,
kind of just this dull.
Not the game getter 2s.
Like OD green, you would call it today, right?
Yeah,
They were game getter arrows. So we're just shooting these arrows into hay bales. That's all we had.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the season, we're ready to go. These are chrome. I mean, they are shiny chrome. Well, we get the idea. Because you
wore the paint off.
Yeah, all the anodization came off, and they're just shiny chrome.
Right.
And so, we can't have this. So we go buy a bunch of rattle can paint. We get the big idea. And I think it was Brooks's idea. Dude, let's camo these arrows.
Right.
So we do. Oh, it's great. Of course
Who
we
knows
don't
what
shoot
it
them
changed the
because
weight.
it'll come off, right? So we're just all ready to go. And so I'm spotting for Jeff. and he's making this big stock. And I mean, back then, oh my gosh, you remember the Steens.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I've got another side story. I've taken Lisa and I went in there the last 2 years. And, that's another side story. But there was you could literally see 75 bucks in one evening on one hillside.
Me and Roy went scouting one time on the 4th of July when we were going to go in 91 when I killed that big buck up there when you invited me.
Right.
And in the weekend, we saw something like 40 4-point bucks or better. And we were over on the other side. We weren't where I killed that one. We were over on the other side. And it's just like, we're like, what is this, heaven? Deer hunting heaven?
Yeah,
it was crazy.
It was like rabbits. I mean, it was like jackrabbits. It's the overpopulation of deer, right? And so, anyway, so Brooks we had this big game plan. We'd read Dwight Schute's book, right?
Hunting open
country mule deer,
yeah.
right? So
Classic.
we had this all figured out, right? One guy spots, and the other guy makes his long stalk up and around, use hand signals. I mean, we didn't have radios or anything back then, just hand signal stuff. So we had all these hand signals worked out. So Jeff's like making his final ascent on this buck, and he's coming in over one of those big, rim rocks, and the buck's bedded right at the base of it. And so he gets right up there, and it's just intense. I'm sitting there just watching, and, I see Jeff, he's got his arrow loaded and he goes to start to draw. And this buck just shoots out of there like he's shot out of a cannon. And Jeff's at full draw and the buck's running. Of course, he shoots at it, because he had to shoot, right?
Arrows in the quiver don't deliver.
That's right. There's no hit, nothing, And so I get up to him. I'm like, dude, what happened? What in the world happened? How did he hear you draw?
Yeah.
And he's like, take an arrow out of your quiver and draw it. And I'm like, really? And he's like, just do it.
Yeah.
And I pull out, and like,
was it a springy rest?
No. We were more advanced than springy rest.
Okay.
We had a Huntmaster 2000. They were made by Golden Key.
Right.
It had a foot and a plunger button, right? On an overdraw.
Yeah.
And so, I pull it out and I draw it back, and the whole way back it's just and I'm like,
that paint scraping on the. Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And so then we're just like, well, what do we do? Well, Jeff had some Vaseline. So then we Vaseline our arrows and it made it go away.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
you can only imagine how those would have flown, right? We got paint on them,
Rough.
which makes them heavy.
Yeah.
We got Vaseline on them now.
Well, I
We're
remember.
just total stumblers. I mean,
We shot a lot back
like,
then.
We were the biggest stumblers ever,
I remember, do you remember Bill and Bob Henson?
Yeah, real well. Yeah,
so,
Bill and Bob.
Yeah, their dad, I remember one time we were hunting up above Marcola and he got back and I don't know if he had arrows missing or whatever. And I was like, did you get any shots? He goes, yes, I did. I said, what happened? He's like, well, I shot over some and I shot under some. So that was just the name of the game back then. You took enough arrows so you could get some arrows in the air.
The most amazing thing is that first year, I actually killed a buck.
You killed that big white 3-point, wasn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And I missed it the first shot.
Oh.
So we're like, and we're coming back from the Steens, Jeff and I, and there's this place, Tumalo Creek. I mean, everybody that hunts Oregon would probably know where it's at. It's over by Broken Top. And it used to be like all these giant bucks that were mule deer and they'd stay up there in the park zone. And it was just beautiful country up there. And so, Jeff and I park and we whittle our way up there. And we split up, and we knew where these bucks were at. There was usually like 15 or 20 of these bucks up there, and they were all just stupid big, like 180, 200-inch bucks. I mean, back then, they weren't uncommon. Giant bucks. And so Jeff takes off to my right. We're just going to split up, and we're just going to do our own thing because it's kind of flat up there. It's just these little tiny trees and mostly open. And Jeff hadn't been gone for like 35 minutes, and I look over, and here comes that buck. And he's big.
Walking to you?
No, he's running.
Oh, okay.
Because Jeff had spooked him.
Oh, gotcha.
And so here he comes. And so at this point, and I even hate to admit this, I'd missed 14 deer.
Right.
No, right? So this is going to be number 15.
Yeah.
And
I missed 16 my first year, so I got you.
Yeah, you do. That's not uncommon for you to have me. But anyway, I draw, and I'm just like, this is what's going through my mind. I'm such a defeatist. I'm like, I'm going to miss this thing, right? I'm going to miss it. And so I draw my bow and it runs right out in front of me. It's probably not 30 yards.
Oh man.
And fine line sight,
Yeah.
And
good
so
sights.
I'm getting down to where, because we didn't have rangefinders back then. I mean, there's no way to know the yardage.
No.
We were crappy on yardage anyway. He looks like he's a bit of a distance. And back then, I mean, 50 yards was forever.
That's a long shot.
You didn't even shoot 50. You know, so I'm thinking, oh, he's got to be like at least 30. Well, somehow I shoot over him. And the arrow, you know, the wind was blowing a little bit, and the arrow goes over him and skips up through the rocks. Well, he hears it, and it spooks him, and he's just looking everywhere. Well, he doesn't see me. I'm standing next to a tree, and he turns, and there's a little dry wash right next to me, and he runs down the dry wash. So the best thing that happened is I get pissed. I'm just like, no, this is impossible.
Right.
And so I go running after him, but I'm on the other side of this little hill.
Okay.
And so he's running down this dry wash. So I sprint down this thing as hard as I can go for like 150 yards. And I'm just thinking, well, he should be right here. So I pop up over the top, and he hears me, and he stops, and he's just looking every direction. Then I got arrow loaded, and I drew back. And I remember, I mean, it was such a good lesson because I pull back, and I'm like, I'm just ticked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just put my 50 on him. I think if he's not 30, he's 50, right? You just guess.
Yeah.
There's no.
It's always even.
I remember in my head, I'm just like, he's 50. I mean, there was no second guessing it. I just draw back, and I let that 50 set on him a little bit, and I cut it loose, and I hit him through the neck, bust the opposite shoulder, and he just falls down right there.
Oh,
and he
man.
doesn't go anywhere. And
How'd
all of a
that
sudden,
feel? Was that your first bow kill?
That's my first bow kill.
Whoa.
And all of a sudden, I'm a big bow hunter. I've arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
it's
that
like
picture.
1980, what was it? 83 or
Whoa.
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was way back there.
So
I mean,
just a few days ago.
we're wearing our camel was like Army surplus.
Yeah.
You know, the old woodland Army surplus. And we
Yeah.
had these little fanny packs. And I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't even packs back then. You know, you couldn't wear them. They were so noisy.
And the bows weren't, I mean.
I shot him with a golden eagle.
Okay.
A golden eagle, like some kind of, I can't even remember, Super Hawk, or I think it was a Super Hawk.
I had the Turbo Hawk Super Cam. It was my first one.
And this is it. I walk into the bow rack, and they look at me, and I'm 6'1", right?
Yeah.
You're 31-inch draw. Because you just had a
Right.
choice, right?
Right.
You could have been 29. I think they had 29 back then, actually. But you were 29, 30, or 31. They just look at me, and you're 31. And I'm like, the whole time, all year practicing, I'm like, I got my thumb behind my neck. I'm leaning back as far as I can, and it's all I can do to keep this bullet full draw. And that's
Yeah.
what I hunted with. I'm like, you got to be kidding. I'm a 20, well, for years I shot 28-inch draw, and now I'm 27.5. You just shrink over time. It's just a reality.
Yeah,
It just
well,
happens.
we all shot too long of bows, basically, because of that.
Yeah,
and that's,
you just had to fit in.
that's
It's what was made in the industry, you know.
well, that reminded me of, you say that a lot with some of these new archers we have coming in about being aggressive, you know, with a bow. So you said you were mad, and that's why you killed that buck.
Right.
And it is being the aggressor. You're going to make this happen. You're going to kill that deer. That's an attitude.
Right.
And then it reflects over into what you're doing.
Well,
sending
you
an
know,
arrow.
moving forward, I mean, anybody that I could learn from, I would, you know. And so just, you know, Michelle and Terry Ragsdale, you remember them?
Yeah,
They shot
yeah,
for
great-
PSC.
great
Just,
shooters.
oh my gosh, they won everything. She was the meanest, maddest chick shooting. I mean, she's the nicest person. And I think I met her one time. I met Terry one time. I went to Vegas, like, I think it was 1989 or 90. I went to Vegas and I met them. They were like the nicest people ever. But you watched her shoot.
Yeah.
She was the most aggressive. She had the most aggressive stance. I mean, she would come in and she would just have like, I'm going to kill that target.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And you watch that and it was infectious because it's like, I like that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to shoot with purpose. You have to shoot with aggression. And so she definitely had that whole mantra down in her tournaments, and she won. I mean, Terry didn't shoot like that. He looked like
He
but
was still a good shooter.
Oh, he was awesome, and his dad was like just incredible coach. You know,
I remember
And,
that.
Yeah.
And then I do, so I'll just throw out an old name and see if you remember this. I just thought about this the other day. And this was early days, Jim Hodson.
Oh, Jim Hodson.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember, like, what stands out when you think of Jim Hodson?
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable bow hunter. And the most humble guy you,
Do you
would
remember the
ever
seminar
talk
he
to
did?
in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, he would say his biggest lines like, you know, I'm not any good, but I'm just out there a lot. And, you know, if you're out there a lot and you shoot enough arrows, someone's going to die. He would like say stuff like that.
Do you remember that seminar he had at the bow rack?
So his wife was a professional photographer.
Okay. Oh, that's what it was. That's why
and
he
he goes,
had that
she just sets
album.
my cameras up for me, and I just take lots of pictures. and he had the most incredible photos in the world. And he was the nicest guy in the world. He was a dentist.
That's right.
From Redmond.
Yeah.
And he'd been to Kodiak. Like he would charge me. Like he would get a hold of me. Wayne, he goes, look, you need to go to Kodiak. He goes, you need to go to Wyoming elk hunting. He goes, you need to start now. And I'm like, I've got kids. I've got no money. I've got
We
this
never thought
archery
about
shop.
out of state anything back then.
No. But he would tell, he's like, well, the last time I had him for a seminar, he was getting elderly. He'd been to Kodiak 55 times.
Whoa.
At that point. And
I think that was the reason Roy and I started taking such good photos way back when, because we went to that seminar and he had that album of all 8x10s. And we were just sitting there and we'd just look at all his amazing pictures of all these adventures. And I just remember Jim Hodson.
Oh my gosh.
I need an album like Jim Hodson. That was my goal.
Right. No, and you wanted to be like Jim. I mean, in every way. I mean, he was the most humble guy. I mean, remember the story where he's like got this picture of this moose and it's looking in his tent. And he was sick or something and couldn't go out. His buddy's going out looking, and his moose just comes in and it's a giant. Yeah. It's a giant moose. And he winds up shooting it like right in his camp. And his buddy comes back and he's got it all butchered right here. And like, what did you do? How'd you get it back? He's like, well, it came into camp.
Well, I just remember that because as young bow hunters like we were, these guys who they kind of paved the way. You know, we're old, and so now we got all these young studs coming up. Right. You know, you might say White Sea Bright, Nathan Endicott, your son. There's this other kid. He kills Derek somebody.
Derek Davis?
No. Derek, his dad used to work with my brother and Jim Osborne. I can't remember his name now, but he kills a bunch. Right. Tanner, do you know Derek's name? Remember him?
Man, there's a lot of hot rods out there. There's kids that are just driven.
Yeah.
I mean, Wyatt is a different cut of kid. I mean,
he kills.
He's already got way more accomplishments in a tough environment for hunting than like anybody else I know at his age in history, maybe.
Real? That's
I mean,
saying
it
something.
is. Oh, it is. I mean,
because he's going to out of state too, which we never could.
Right. Oh, I know. He follows me. He's like, Wayne, I drew Wyoming. I'm like, awesome. What'd you draw? He's like, yeah, I drew, unit I'd hunted a lot, and I would say it. I don't really care. I'll never draw it again in my lifetime, but people get upset. But,
we don't need to say it.
Yeah. But anyway, and he's been there twice now. He drew luck of the draw.
Man,
and he's just this kid that's just blessed that way.
There's another old guy too, and I'll say what he just used to say is it doesn't cost any more to aim.
Oh my gosh, J.C. James.
Yeah.
So J.C.'s quite the story. So when I first bought the shop, I mean, I know I went to college a couple of years. I was a criminal justice major. I know nothing about business. I'm an idiot. And I don't know anything. I just know I want, like every dumb kid, that buys an archery shop. I think there's a pile of them that do it. In the beginning, I'm like, dude, I'm going to hunt all the time. I'm going to shoot tournaments all the time. And I'm going to sell bows and arrows.
Sounds good.
Sounds great, right?
Yeah.
Except kind of left out the work part of it in the beginning, So, and I buy this shop, and of course I go in, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. There's a lot of responsibility going on here, and I don't even have a clue what I'm doing.
Right.
And, so like, honestly, the first person I ever met in the shop was Roy, Roy Roth. And the second person's J.C. James. J.C. comes in, he goes, hi, I'm J.C. James. He goes, I gotta ask you a question. I go, what's that? And he goes, I've got a vacation coming up. And he goes, I'm going to be off for a couple weeks. He goes, you care if I come work with you for a week? And I'm like, absolutely.
Why did he offer that?
Just because he's a good-hearted guy.
Yeah, he just.
And we became great friends after that. I mean, he's way elderly now, and it's kind of funny, JC would have, oh my gosh, he's the best storyteller ever. And joke tellers, except the jokes would probably curl your eyelashes, most of them. But with that, he came in, it's probably been 5 years ago, and he's telling me everything that's wrong with him. And he stops and he goes, what is wrong with me? He goes, when we were young, he goes, we talked about hunting and shooting bows and tournaments and girls. And he goes, now? Because all I do is talk about the medication I'm on, what's wrong with me. But no, JC came and he had a little store. He had a little store for a while.
Archery?
And he was on staff with PSE. He was a competitive shooter, shot Bowhunter freestyle, which is, all the goodies, bow scope, 30-inch stabilizer, but he shot fingers. And he was a good finger shooter. And so he came and worked with me. And he set up bows and kits, and you got to get all these bows all cookie cuttered in kits, and you set them all up, and guys come in, you let them shoot them, and you work with them and everything. And I mean, I learned more from him than anybody I've ever been around, and I've had a lot of great men work for me. That's the other thing. I mean, once I kind of got the foundation built, and stuff, I just had a lot of, started with Jamie Coleman.
Yeah.
Jamie and I were like family for a lot of years. And then, Chris Phillips, Chris is just a great kid. He's a state cop now. Joe Young, Joe was awesome. I've got a great crew of guys now, Trent Stoops and Jordan and AJ and Blake. I mean, and then Nate works for me part-time. I mean, he's a crazy success story. I mean, just good guys, but I've just had great people. Chris Stewart. I mean, Chris and Chris. Nicky worked for me, Nick Hammond, Nick the trainer dude. I mean, Nicky, I've got such great stories about Nicky. He's such a kind-hearted guy. And Phillips, Chris, you knew Chris.
Yeah. He's competitive. Remember us shooting?
Oh, my gosh, Chris.
I mean, when we used to do the 3D shoots.
Chris is, and Chris understands this. He's going to like me saying this, but Chris was a bully. Yeah. And he used to pick on Nick, right? Who picks on Nick, right?
Right, yeah.
And Chris would just like terrorize him.
Right.
And so Nick walks in one day.
Head. Yeah.
Nick wasn't having a good day. Nick walks in, he's got his, Nick always come in with his cooler full of food. He's going to eat all day, but he's coming in, and Nick looks up and he sees Phillips and he goes, not a word out of you. I get one word out of you, I'm going to kill you. Just nothing out of you today.
Rough day.
Oh,
yeah, because Chris Phillips,
Nicky was always good, but he's like, just like, it was before anybody was in there. It wasn't like business hours, and he's just like, he just sets Phillips straight right off.
Phillips is pretty relentless.
Yeah. Well, when Nate ran the hill that one time with you.
Yeah.
So this is Phillips for you.
Right.
We had a lot of fun with old Chris. Nate comes in, right? And he just got out of college, and he comes in, he goes, hey, he goes, Nate, you going to go run the hill? Cam's got that, lift, run, shoot thing. He's going to give bow away or whatever. You going to go do that? And Nate's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And he's like, yeah. He goes, figured you, and that's just what Cam said. He said you didn't have the heart for it. He said you just smoke you. And, you worked with my son. And you guys already had the competitive thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
I was like running errands. And Phillips tells me all this when I get back, right? And so Nate's like, what? He said that? And he's like, yep. Said you didn't have the heart for it. Said you'd chicken out. He knew you wouldn't do it. And Nate's like competitive to the bone.
Right.
I mean, my son. I mean, I've got great stories about him when he was a kid. But he's always been a driven competitor. And Nate's like, I'm going to go get my shoes. And so when he showed up, wasn't he just changing his clothes and putting his shoes on? Yeah. So he's
a good runner.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
No, he was a runner. He was the athlete. He was a kid, and all the way through school. It's like, Dad, I got to play soccer. Then I got basketball, then baseball, then football, flag football. It's like, okay, these are overlapping. Can we take? No. Yeah. I have to play every sport. So we had like practices overlapping, and so I got to coach his basketball and his baseball, and it was.
When you talk about
great.
heart, I remember he, like at the state track meets, he would run so hard. He'd come in. Did he have to go off on an ambulance once?
So it was close.
I mean, he's foaming, just like sprinting, giving everything he had.
Yeah. He was a 1500 3, and he loved the 3000, but the 3000 would, and he'd win a lot of them. And I mean, he set the whole wall of shame. I don't know if much of his stuff's been broken at Thurston for distance and cross country. Yeah. But, that was his thing. He would put it all out there, and he would train like he'd come, so his whole running career starts like when he's 14, and he comes home one day and he's like, well, no, his school starts. and I'm home, and it's like 6 o'clock, and I tell Lisa, I ask Lisa, I go, "Where's Nate?" It's like, "Brittany's here. Where's Nate?"
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows. And I'm like, so then, we're living in Ambleside, and I look out in the street, and somebody's pulling in like 6:30, and Nate jumps out of the car. So I'm like right at the door. I'm like, "So what's going on?" He goes, Dad. He goes, I just ran with the guys, on the track team. And I'm like, and what? So I'm going to go out for track. And I'm like, really? He goes, I made the team. He goes, I make varsity. And I go, how do you make varsity? I haven't even ran a meet yet. He goes, well, I just beat all the senior guys.
Whoa.
I'm like,
yeah.
Well, I guess.
He was good.
Yeah. And he, we just got back from hunting, and he actually hunted a long season with me that year. So no running, but
he was in great shape.
He was in good shape. So that kind of launched that whole thing. So yeah, Nate was a runner-in for Portland State, great competitor.
Yeah. And he's still, now he's channeling, just like we did, channeling that energy and that focus into bow hunting.
Right. And I, shameless plug for him, but Endicott Films. I mean, I think kid does a good job. Of course, I'm biased. I'm his dad, but I watch it.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff.
Yeah,
he does a good job.
So you mentioned Roy was the first guy who came in. Tell me something about Roy.
Oh my gosh. Roy was an unbelievable individual. I mean, you and I have the pleasure to know that. I mean, so many people. Roy, I'm in the shop one day, and Roy comes in. He sits down, just has a seat. Still remember the joke he told. He's had a joke for you, and he was just the kindest, hardest. I mean, as a young guy, I mean, here I'm this puffed up, proud, think I know everything dude, just a complete bumbling idiot guy. And here's Roy, and he's just the kindest guy ever, and he would come in almost, if it wasn't every day, it was every other day, just for lunch. He was always working hard. Him and his dad had that foundation business where they were replacing, and in construction and everything. And he just couldn't help but just fall in love with this guy, right? I mean, he was just one of those guys that just looked at you, and you just knew you were going to be friends.
Yeah.
Right off.
Yeah.
I mean, and so just I've got a ton of hunting stories, and you have way more than I do. But Roy comes in, and season starts, right? Well, I'm just got like one part-time employee. I think Mike Allen was working for me, and I'm just trying to peddle his shop. And so Roy comes in, he's like, man, he goes, I'm into the elk. And this is back when Weyerhaeuser had no restrictions, and everybody could just go up there and do whatever. They had locked gates, but they didn't care if you hunted it or not. I mean, bow hunters didn't amount to anything. And Roy comes in, he goes, man, I'm into all these bulls. And we got this funny horn bull. You remember the funny? I remember
funny horn.
Yeah,
I
saw that thing. And then he had all these big bulls, and he's just telling me all these wild stories. And he goes, you want to go? I'm like, I'm just starving to death to hunt because, I'm like, yeah, I want to go. He goes, okay. He goes, when we get done talking, he tells me a bunch of stories, and he goes, okay. He goes, we need to meet at 2. And I go, Roy, I thought we were going to go in the morning. I go, I have to run my shop. I go, I can't go at 2.
Yeah.
I have to be here to open it. I think back then, I opened at 11. And I go, I got to be back here to run the shop. And he goes, no, 2 a.m. And so, like anybody, I judged the book by the cover. I had never stepped outside one day with Roy.
Right.
And so I'm looking at Roy, and I'm like,
for
we
people
got to
who don't
leave
know,
at 2 because
he's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so underneath all that, I soon discovered that was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Underneath all that, because he's the strongest man I've ever met in my bloody life. I mean, so yeah, we met at 2 a.m, and we hike in the dark. Like it gets daylight. We're at the top of Mill Creek from the bottom of Windling.
It's a long walk.
And I'm trying to keep up with this guy. And we're cutting across units. I mean, we went from one main line to the other, just cutting down and crossing a creek in the dark.
Right.
To the other side and hit some main line. And I'm cut up. I'm bleeding. I'm just trying to chase this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let him think that I'm a wussy. I'm like, but I've never really done this in Western Oregon and pushed this hard.
Yeah.
I'm used to Eastern Oregon. It's all wide open. I'm cut my teeth over there, but this is all new, Yeah. And, it gets daylight. Well, my shop didn't open that day. So we got into a big herd of elk up there.
Yeah.
And Roy's like, okay, they're going that way. I'm going to go this way. You go that way. And I didn't see Roy again until like 4.5 hours after dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People,
and that was the first day I hunted with Roy.
People talk about, everybody likes talking about how tough they are. Oh, I don't, and I compare everybody to Roy, and I'm like, you're not tough.
No.
You're not tough, because I've seen tough. I
tell everybody the same thing. I go to Rich Outdoors and go to Roy podcast and watch that. I had a Scott Whiteley, financial advisor. He was doing seminars. He made him listen to Roy's podcast. And I mean, there was so much to learn from Roy, but I mean, don't talk about the old days.
Yeah.
Exploit everything that you have to the fullest. And I mean, oh my gosh, I remember watching Roy. Roy was with me still to this date. I've killed some good bulls, but that bull we killed in the Steens together.
I remember it.
I think that's still like one of the biggest.
Out.
Yeah,
that bull was. I mean, I remember its fourths coming up especially on that one side, and that picture, bull. Such a cool picture with you. And to us, that was like a world record bull,
right?
To us, we hadn't killed anything by then.
No.
And that bull, and he was with you, right?
And Roy called it in.
Okay,
but Roy was there. The thing comes around a root wad, and Roy's blocked. Because I look over, Roy's at full draw, and I see it coming. He's at full draw. I'm like, so I draw, and I look, and Roy's not shooting, and the bull comes around, and I shoot, and Roy lets up, and he's like, but dude, I was blocked.
Yeah.
But what a great experience that was with Roy. But another thing I learned is a master butcher. The dude was a chickmunk with a knife.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew. I mean, he's like, we get done taking a few pictures,
Yeah.
And I had to talk Roy. This is before pictures days, but I was still big on photos,
Yeah.
So I had to talk Roy into taking some photos, and stuff. Because he's like, has his knife out. I'm like, no, we got to take some photos,
right.
And so we get all done with the old photo op, and I start to jump in. I go, we get this thing rolled over. He goes, why? I go, because we're going to gut it. He's like, we're not gutting this. He's like, and he's just into that thing full on, capes it. I mean, I'm just holding and pulling and taking shoulders off. And this guy's like, I'm looking at him like, okay, my dad used a hatchet and would like cut everything in half and put it on a horse.
Yeah.
And, let my mom quartered up when we got it home.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Because Roy trapped forever. So he was so used to skinning out, whatever he's catching in the traps. But yeah, he was, and so fast.
Ray had to teach him. Ray had to just being a master butcher himself. But
they grew up. He's born in Wisconsin and on a dairy farm.
Oh yeah.
So I think you just learn so much being in that situation. It's like way more. I like to call it capable. You just know a lot about a lot. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it was from that, and then the trapping, and then, with the foundations, how you're always bent over, how your back gets so on fire from bending over working on animals. But Roy could do it because he's used to tying foundations together, and the forms for foundations. So he's bent over all the time. So with a knife, with all that, easy work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just amazing.
He was an unbelievable individual, in every way. I mean, I sat with him on a campfire, I think it was the night we spotted that bull, and we were going in on it the next day, and we just sat there, and there was such a side to Roy that, he was, we were both believers, and I was probably, at the time I was probably just living for myself. I'd been dedicated, and then, gave my heart and life to Christ. It's crazy, unbelievable experience for me. But by the time I was there, I was in a broken marriage. I was just in a kind of a dark place, but, I watched Roy that night, and we were sitting there, and just out of the blue, he was singing like he always singing, and he just stops, and he puts his hands in, he puts his head in his hands, and he's sitting there, and he just kind of looks at me, and he goes, hunting means too much to me. He goes, it just means too much. He goes, I just trying to get a handle on it, but he goes, I just don't know, he goes, I need to pray about it. He goes, but it just means too much. And I never, it was just like, I never even had that thought, because that's all I thought about was hunting. I mean, there was nothing else in my mind, and it made me step back and think, you know, that's why who he is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because he's sensitive to what God wanted,
Right.
you know, for his life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't at that time. I was just totally selfish, living my own way, even though I'd had an unbelievable experience when I was 18 years old, you know, where I was like the rottenest kid in the whole entire world. And I was following a girl to church, and, you know, a youth pastor asked me, he goes, Wayne, he goes, if you die right now, where are you going to go? And I'm like, well, without a doubt, I'm going to hell. I knew that. I mean, I knew that was written on my heart. I mean, I had a dark heart. I wasn't there. I didn't like church. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't like anything about God. And it was just a short period of time after that. I just had to be honest with myself, you know, that, man, I didn't know there was a way out. I'd never heard the gospel. I mean, my parents were great people, and they were good moral people, but, you know, they didn't know God. I mean, it's like fishing. I mean, you talk to somebody very long that's, you know, a steelhead or salmon fisherman or a bow hunter or a big time bow hunter. You don't have to talk very long, you know, with them, and you either know they're a poser or they're actually the real thing.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you come to a relationship with Christ, I mean, you don't have to talk to somebody very long to know whether they actually have experienced that or not. And I mean, the one time that I really was honest with myself, and I had somebody kind of lead me in a prayer, because I was ready. I mean, I'm like, yeah, I want to go to heaven, and they led me in a prayer, and I actually had demons go out of me. I felt hot air go out of me, and I felt clean for the first time in my whole entire life. You know, and then when you meet other believers, I mean, when I met Roy, I mean, I just knew right away. I mean, we didn't have to talk very long. And he's like, dude, yeah, I'm a believer. I, you know, go to the Assembly of God and Mohawk, and, you know, my wife. And he's just like, yeah, you know, he just had that heart. Yeah. You know, and he was just such an awesome individual. My biggest, it took me years to get up to where, like, I was ready to go to Kodiak. And Nate Simmons did that whole video. It was our hunt, but it was kind of a memorial to, you know, Western Hunter, you know, when Nate did that, it was a whole memorial to Roy, really. And I mean, honestly, in that whole hunt, you know, I was just kind of brokenhearted the whole time, and I wasn't going to go. I was going to cancel. And Bob Amin and Jonas Stewart, and they all grabbed me like, no, you're going. Roy would want you to go. And this was at Roy's service when we lost Roy. Because 2 weeks later, we were supposed to go to Kodiak. And I had it full on planned on, no, I'm not going. Because I don't know where I'm going. I don't know any logistics. I didn't have any gear. I was just planning. Roy had all that. I mean, Roy was the one guy. I mean, that's the only time in the whole time that Roy ever canceled on a hunting trip. Because I mean, he was the guy that anytime when we were kids and we were younger, if you're gonna go, Roy's there. Yeah, he's never canceling. He's gonna be there. He was that guy. And so we were supposed to go to Kodiak 2 weeks after the sheep accident. We lost him. And I wanted to have my son experience a hunting trip with Roy. I really did. I wanted Nate to experience that, you know. And when I was in the airport, you know, I made a phone call, you know, and I just sitting there, and the Lord just says, you need to call Nate Simmons, and you need to call Steve Howard. And I did. I called him in the airport, and I just said, look, I mean, you dropped me off. You and Trace had dropped me off. And I just said, look, I'm going to go on this hunt. And I know it's a short notice. I mean, it's like a week. We had like 13 days or 14 days. And somehow they both said yes. And somehow Nate secured a filming permit for Western Hunter to do that show. And so I can't remember what season it's on. I've got the DVD, but, you know, the whole time, I mean, it was just, you know, it was just like Roy was just like, this was Roy's hunting ground. This is what he loved. This is where he loved to be. And the one thing you could count on Roy is that he was gonna smell out the number one hunting area for blacktail on all of Kodiak. You could count on that. Yeah. Because he was that guy. He was. I mean, Dave Chapman has a story about Roy where Dave was flown out with his pilot, and the whole time Roy's arguing with the pilot on where to drop him off. You've heard this story. Yeah. It was on, I think he talked about it on his podcast. And they land. Well, Dave's just going to hunt caribou right where he's at. And Roy's area is like 13 or 14 miles away across Muskeg or something. Yeah. to even get to his unit.
Yeah.
And the whole time he's arguing with the pilot just dumps him out. Well, Roy's gone.
Yeah.
And he makes it back. And Dave talks about the whole thing. And I heard it from both sides because Roy told me the story.
Yeah.
And Dave told it. But I mean, literally the toughest, kindest, most unbelievable individual I've ever hunted with in my life. And we're both super blessed and super gifted that we had that time with Roy. We are beyond imagination. He impacted us like we didn't deserve it, like unworthy that we could have a guy like that. And to know he's in heaven, I mean, it comforts me. Because I know, the Lord loved him so much that it's like if there was a multiple choice on how you're going to go, he went the way he wanted to go.
Yeah.
And the Lord just looked down like, this guy's such this guy's such a prince. We're going to, he belongs with us in heaven right now. He's such a prince. But, he's just, it's just the fact that he was just that guy. I mean, once in a lifetime type guy. Mm-hmm. And we've known a lot of them. I mean, there's all kinds of them. There's some. We were talking about Mark Ludwig the other day. Mm-hmm. And, totally different spectrum type of guy. But the fact that you get to know those people. Yeah. And then some of our mentors like Larry Jones and Dwight Shue and, in the later years, I got to be good friends with Dwight and, spent some time with him. We'd call and talk. He wanted to hunt the same unit I'd been hunting in Wyoming with a lot of, he had the points and he was sick. And, it was just, just the awesome experiences we've had. Neil Summers, another great bow hunter, great guy. Call him anytime, ask him anything, just full of information for you. And if I can be anything to anybody, I want to be that. Yeah. With my time left to these younger guys that are coming up. And if I can help them with the equipment and make them comfortable with the equipment, that's just one part of it. Yeah. But, it just kind of gives you that sense of purpose, It does. Yeah. Yeah. And giving back, it's like we've transitioned. We were the young guys. Now we're the old guys. And so that's why, to me, I love doing this lift, run, shoot with not so much people already that bow hunt. Right. It's just like we got them. Yeah. What we need, I want to share something that's impacted us so greatly with people who maybe otherwise wouldn't. And now we're the guys. We're the old guys that, whatever. Yeah. We're not as good as we once were, but we can still get it done. Oh yeah. And I think it's so vital. And it's one reason why, I don't know. I love the positive aspect of bringing them to your shop. You going through the basics, like really teaching them how to do it right, because there's nobody can question your passion for bow hunting or for archery. And having somebody like that, I think, changes everything. So your goal, what you say you want to do, you want to be like we had those old guys that we had, you want to be that for these, and you're doing it. And it's and as far as the beginning, there was so many people I can't even start to name that have helped me, so much over the years. I remember we lost Terry Gent. Terry Gent was president of what now is Umpqua Bank. Back then was Centennial. And, back I was swinging a hammer. I worked outside of the shop, through the 90s for a lot of years. Lisa would run the shop with one employee, Jamie Coleman, and I would swing a hammer in the wintertime because, we weren't making it. Pretty slow, yeah. Yeah, it was different times. And, I just, one day I'm just like, I've got to get a handle on this. I've got to be able to make a living at this. And so, I went there was a piece of property where I'm at now. It came up for sale, and I'd been swinging a hammer enough. What an opportunity. I mean, Steve Johnson was, I think he came in, he'd been shooting league, and Steve's like, well, if you want a job, I give you a job framing. Well, what an opportunity to learn how to frame houses. And guys like Steve Johnson and Pete Wadsworth and Todd Mayhem and Jerry Sherman, all these guys that I work with, they're all young guys. And I'm like the old guy in the crew, but what an opportunity to go learn. You give these guys a nail gun, a saw, and a framing square and a pencil, and they build the Taj Mahal for you. I mean,
so
there was
talented.
nothing they couldn't do. We were doing Street of Dreams homes, and like if there was 7, Street of Dreams homes at Valley River Village in the tour, Steve would land 7 of them.
Yeah.
Or 5 of them.
Talented
And
carpenters.
then there's 7 of us framers, so we're all spread thin. And he had a great reputation for framing a great house, doing an awesome job, big house, very efficient and perfect. And so I learned from those guys. So like when this lot came up for sale, I went to see Terry. Well, Terry was a bow hunter, and I just walk into his office, and he'd known me, done business with me, different time of different times we were living in. And I walk in, and I go, Terry, there's a lot for sale down the street, and I go, I'm thinking about building a building. I know how to do it. I could do it myself. I'll build the whole entire building myself. And Jeff Brooks will help me with the concrete because Jeff did concrete,
Right.
had his own concrete business. I go, I'm going to just do everything. And I go, I think I can save a lot of money, and I think I can get it done for a small amount of money. This is Terry. He opens up the drawer, and he looks in his drawer, and he looks at me, looks in his drawer, and he throws a blank bunch of checks across, and he goes, come back in next week and sign some stuff. But he goes, I'll activate that. And he goes, go buy the property.
Wow.
And he goes, we'll just do it all on a line of credit. And when you're done, we'll switch it over to an SBA loan.
Jeez.
And I'm just like, awesome.
Yeah. What
So
a
I couldn't
blessing.
get a hold of the guy quick enough. It was like no real estate guy. It was just this guy had $56,000 for that lot I got, right? It's long and narrow. And
Yeah.
man, I'm over with Jay Marcotte and Rick Roberts, and Rick draws the plans for me. I'm at the city, and before you know it, I'm swinging a hammer and I'm building this building, and it's coming together, and I'm like, it's awesome. I'm just like, it was me making the commitment that, this is where I'm going.
And now it's a destination.
Yeah.
People know, everybody knows
And we're
the
going to
bow
make
rack.
it better. And it's starting in October. I'm going to expand. I'm going to add 1,800 square feet. So I'm excited about that. Just met with the city before I came over to talk with you. And,
Man.
and they was like, yeah, go for it. It's all a go. We got to just dot some I's and cross some T's, and, but it all looks great. So we're going to make it better. We're going to make it bigger, and we're going to make it a little better. We're going to add about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet to it. So this can be good.
Man.
Can't
Well,
wait.
I'm pumped.
I'm still I got to stay healthy enough that I can get that construction job done.
Well, you are the herd bull.
Well,
I always say,
I'm gonna pull in another herd bull. I got a little Tim McMahon. He ran Essex Cruise forever.
Yeah.
Tim's awesome.
Yeah.
He's so funny. He's the funniest guy ever. Hunted with him in Wyoming, and I laugh so much. I mean, he's kind of like Roy. Tim's
Yeah.
just always is never anything serious. He's just the biggest, funniest guy, just always cracking jokes. And I just had a great time with him. I already talked to him about it, so he's not surprised that I'm going to pull him out of retirement to
there
come
you
help
go.
me.
Oh, that's a good
He'll
hand.
keep me straight. He goes, we need to hire a framing crew. I go, you're looking at him.
That's one thing I respect about you. You do a lot of work. I mean, you're one of the hardest working guys I know.
I enjoy it. I think Thomas Edison had a quote one time. He said, opportunity often disguises itself as hard work.
Yeah, right.
I think we have lights.
Yeah.
Did he have something
He was
to do
onto
with that?
something.
He
He's
had
onto
something going
something.
on there. I'm sure he worked really hard at it.
I was curious. I mean, I remember, and you probably remember better than me, but back in the day, I used to shoot league
Oh, yeah.
at the bow rack. How was Roy shooting league? Do you remember?
Roy wasn't the best shot, but it didn't matter because, neither was Jim Carter.
Right.
Jimmy missed a walk back one time from 10 yards back to 20, and his wife at the time hit all 8s and 10s.
Yeah.
But Jim was just relentless.
Right.
If he had to stab, if he didn't have anything left for arrows and he found a knife in his pack, he's going to stab him with the knife, right?
Yeah.
Those guys get it done.
Right.
And Roy was that guy. It didn't matter what Roy shot. Like, Roy was incredible. He picked up a recurve. How many brown bear did he kill with his recurve?
I don't know.
Sheep?
Yeah, he killed 9 brown bear and 9 sheep, I think. I don't know.
Gosh.
Not
And the
all of them
percentage with his traditional bow.
Yeah, not all of them with the traditional, but
And he called me one time. He's like, look, I've been struggling with target panic. I think I'm going to shoot a traditional bow for a while. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you had no doubt he was going to get it done, right?
Oh,
It's
no. No, he killed giant animals with that thing. He was just it didn't really matter what he used.
I know. He had such great stories. You know, he came and for like the last 3 years there, he came down and stayed in the barn and hunted blacktail. Yeah. And of course I sent him to the high country and he had a lot of fun up there, but the most fun I had is I was working and I wasn't hunting yet because he came pretty early in the season, I think right when it opened. Yeah. And they'd corresponded with other family here and stuff, but Roy, of course, he was hunting. And I just was looking forward to when he was staying out there, I'd go out and listen to all his stories because, I mean, he had such crazy stories.
He did. He was, to me, I mean, kind of how you said that guiding light a little bit, because where you guys talked in the Steens, where he thought bow hunting meant too much to him. He was worried about that. Well, that was me too. And I never had that balance of he knew that it shouldn't be like that. He should be doing more for God. I didn't have that. All I cared about was bow hunting. Right. I didn't care about anybody else. I didn't care about anything else. All I wanted to do was bow hunt. So that was our common thing. I just didn't have the positive balance that he had. And he helped me with that. Right. That was where he never felt like he was preaching. It never felt like he was scolding. He was just there and just offering good advice. Right. And you could tell him anything. Yeah. And you can talk to Roy about anything. And he was such a loving individual. There was 675 people or something like that came to his service. I mean, and I never forget, because a father's love for his son is incredible. But when Ray stood up and said, he goes, I'm just so impressed that my son could touch so many people. And he touched way more than was there. Those are just the people that came. I know. And he was here, and then he was in Alaska. Yeah. And all the old sheep hunters that all turned out that had so much respect for him. I mean, you're in greatness when somebody can go to a land that they're not native from, and within a short period of time become a legend. Yeah. In more than one way, in humanity. Yeah. In a human. Just because he loved his fellow man so much. Yeah. Sure, they looked at his accomplishments. And I remember Jay Marcotte come back, and Jay had been up there hunting because he had family up there. And he went to, I can't remember which one of the local archery shops there, but I think it was in Anchorage. And they had a map. And on that map was all a map, and they had pins back then of every place that people, they had different colored pins for caribou and moose and bear. And there was this pin, and Jay took a picture of it and brought it back. It was old 35 millimeter days, and he shows it to me. And there was this pin that was like way, way out, in the middle of nowhere. And it had this note written on it, and it said, this guy from Oregon that moved up here and shot a moose out in the middle of the muskeg. It took him and the whole thing was written out in 5 days to pack it out. 5 days by himself to pack it out. And weren't they search and rescue went out looking for him, and he's still he's almost done? Doing the leapfrog, because he'd been gone for so long, but he had the snow and the good weather, but he's so far back packing a moose by himself, 5 days. And I remember Roy telling the story. He's like, dude, I got out there and I get up on this point and I spot this giant bull and it's way out there. He's like, I'm going. Yeah, I'm doing it. There's because he knew no fear. Limit. No. And I mean, the more confidence you have, I mean, fear is a terrible thing. And I mean, fear hampers us. I mean, we just got done with a period of time in our history where fear is totally gripped a nation and actually changed the culture of a nation. Right. But, fear's not a spirit of the Lord. I mean, the Bible says that. Fear's not a spirit of the Lord. You're to fear God. That's the only fear you're to have. Outside of that, fear's a horrible thing. Right. And so it just totally handicaps everything. Roy knew who he was. Yeah. He knew who he was. No fear. And he knew who he was in God. And he had no fear of anything. Yeah. There was so many stories. I remember, because I grew up trapping, and so Roy was telling me stories about wolverine trapping. And because, when we were up there hunting, when you and I were up there hunting with him for brown bear, there's just wolverine tracks everywhere, and so, after that, when he came down and I think it was the next year, he's like, yeah, he goes, those wolverines, he's worth $675, I think at the time, I'm like, wow, that's good money. He goes, yeah, but he goes, oh my gosh, he goes, it's treacherous. And he said one time, he goes, there's no daylight, you don't need daylight to trap anyway, right. So I'm out and
running my trap line. Well, there's some warm weather come through. Well, I get this big river I got to cross. And he goes, got my trailer, got my sled, I'm on my big snow machine and I'm halfway across and I fall through the ice. And he goes, I don't just fall through, I fall through. And he goes, I'm in the water. He goes, I got to swim back to my sled to get rope because I got to tie this sled off.
Yeah.
Because without the sled, and he goes, I grab my sleeping bag. He goes, I grab some rope, I tie it off, I swim across the ice, I get out, I'm not good. And he goes, I got my sat phone. He goes, I got my sleeping bag. He goes, I get this thing roped off. I tie it off to a tree on the bank and I get in the sleeping bag. He goes, I got to get all the clothes off. He goes, they're so stiff. He goes, you got to get them off quick.
Right.
Because he goes, once they turn rock hard, you can't get them off. So I get all my clothes off and get in the sleeping bag. And he goes, Jill always loves these calls. That's what he tells me. And he goes, I call Jill. And he goes, tell Jeremy.
Jeremy, yeah.
Yeah. He goes, this is where I'm at. He goes, I need chainsaws. We need stuff to build fires. I need gas. He just lines him out. He's 75 miles on a snow machine from Jeremy.
Right.
Jeremy, and God bless that guy.
I know.
Jumps just immediately, jumps to action, gets everything he needs, goes out there. They, gets to Roy's, got clothes for him. Of course, Roy said, I was teetering. I would have been dead.
Yeah.
There's no way. I would have froze to death. He would have came up on a guy, froze to death. I am not that guy. I'm not Roy.
Right.
I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. No way am I Roy Roth.
Yeah.
There's no way. Because that was always my term. I mean, Roy was Arnold Schwarzenegger under all that. But he said that they sawed that snow machine out. They had a chainsaw winch. They winched it out. Then they had to build fires around it to melt the ice because it's frozen. The snow machine's not going to move because it's a big ball of ice. And they get it all done. And what's Roy do? This goes right back to trapping. He doesn't come home. No. Doesn't go, I think I'm going to rethink this thing. No, he's just back at it. It was just a hiccup in his life. I mean, just a small little problem solved. Yeah.
Yeah. He was made for Alaska. A big part of hunting the backcountry is problem solving and logistics, and just being tough and and not panicking. No matter what happened, he would never panic. He'd be like, okay, this is what we got to do. And you mentioned Jeremy, that he was the one who was with Roy. They had been watching this brown bear come out of the den up in that same country where we killed our bear.
Right. And
watching it come out. And then they're watching this den for a while. Normally the bear in and out, getting their stomachs kind of warmed up and after coming out from winter. And nothing had come out. So he's like, hey, I want to go up there and look at that den and see how big it is. So they like to den up on really steep hills.
Yeah.
And so he has to use a shovel to cut footholds all the way up that hill. And he's in there and Jeremy's there. And Roy's like, I'm going to stick my head in and just kind of have a look around. So he sticks his head in and comes face to face with the big old brown bear. A 10-foot brown bear.
Great.
And this bear took a swipe at him. Roy goes piling back, hits Jeremy in the face with the shovel.
With that shovel.
And Jeremy from the hip, I think has like a 375 mag or whatever. But anyway, from the hip shoots that bear because they'd come out on the lip and was looking at Roy and folded it like a duck. And the bear slid down over the top of Roy.
Rolls over Roy, right?
Yes, yeah.
And Roy stands up. He's like, I'm good.
Yeah, I know.
And Jeremy's like, I'm not.
I know.
Me in the nose. His nose is
bleeding. Yeah, I mean,
broke his nose. He said he nearly knocked him out. He said he could hardly even see to shoot the bear when it went by.
And Roy called from the satellite phone right after that. He was so fired up. This is like the greatest story ever. But that's
remember he told that we used to have that big hunters rendezvous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Roy goes, okay, I'm not lying. You can't make this stuff up. I actually did this.
I know. Anybody else, it would probably be a big fabricated story, but Roy didn't have to make up stories. His stories seemed like they were made up. But you started to tell, I wanted you to go back in that first pack out because I know it was a hard pack out of your bull and the Steens. And that was your first experience pretty much with Roy.
Yeah, that bull, we get done butchering that and we switch off, and I'm 20, I can remember my age because this was an imprint because it just cut me to the core as an arrogant, selfish, self-centered 27-year-old man. We killed this bull. and Roy and I switch off. We got the head and the cape, but we don't have our pack boards. You didn't hunt with pack boards back then.
Right.
We didn't have good packs. You know, they rattled, they made noise, they had all these little clips, you know, but we had those big metal frame packs, you know. And so, you know, we got to haul this head and cape out, but we got everything boned and sacked up and waiting for us, you know. So, you know, we get it out, we sleep that night, you know, and Roy was great at dreams. You remember that?
Oh, I know. Yeah. He'd be walking around or fighting.
Oh my gosh. We just had a great day. And I'm a light sleeper. I still don't even sleep. I close my eyes, but everything wakes me up. I mean, you know, and so I'm laying there, you know, I'm tired. We just had this great hunt. I'm pumped. I'm just jacked because we just killed this bull, but I'm not really sleeping. I'm just kind of sleeping.
Right.
And all of a sudden Roy just sits up and he's just like, oh my gosh, it's giant. It's just shoot. And I go, oh my gosh. And I don't know what to do. Like he's screaming.
Right.
And I'm like, we're in the back of I think I had an old 85 Toyota truck at the time, that old diesel Toyota I had, you know, it was a turbo diesel, great truck, 4-wheel drive. And he just lays back down and goes right back to snoring. And then a little bit later, it goes on again, and he was yelling about something else. And I'm just like, so the next morning, I'm like, so Roy, do you remember like having kind of an episode last night? He goes, dude, was something going on? Did I like talk in my sleep? I go, did you talk? I mean, you stood up and like was full on yelling in the back of the truck. He's like, okay, if I do that, just hit me and tell me to shut up and go back to sleep because that's what Jill has to do all the time. I'm like this poor woman.
Yeah.
And it went on a lot after that because, you know, we hunted a lot.
Yeah.
You know, after that. So every time, I mean, you could count on Roy. And Dwayne Levitt did the same thing.
Okay.
Except Dwayne's dreams always involved women. You know, pink polka dotted bikinis. I mean, one time he just woke up and was just screaming pink polka dotted bikinis. You know? But that was, you'd have to know Levitt.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the next day we grab these pack boards and we head off in there. And, you know, the whole time dropping in, I'm like, okay, I think I'm somebody. I'd run, you know, every year my running was seasonal, you know, and so I'd run and get in shape and Stairmaster at the gym and, you know, work out in the gym and get to, so we're all the way in there. I'm thinking, I'm gonna pull my own here.
Right.
You know, you know, this is gonna be competitive.
You used to do pull-ups at the gym with 45-pound plates hanging, and you'd just be knocking out pull-ups.
I remember the first time I saw you in the gym.
Yeah.
I think I was doing dips and I'm sitting there, I'm all focused, and I hear somebody go, "What are you doing?" I go, "Hey, Cam," and you go, "I'm just working out." You go, "I'm gonna tan."
That's right. Yeah. I used to go over there just to go tan.
Like I was, and I'm like, and you just, we got to break for a second because the whole time I'm thinking I'm got to work to be cool, right? And back then I would think I was single, and you know I'm trying to look good and be somebody and everything, but you had me beat.
I don't think so.
No, you had me beat because there's like, and I've said it before, but you know, and you've never heard me say it, but there's like, you know, coolest actors I could think of in Hollywood at the time. Like there's John Wayne and there's Yul Brynner and Clint Eastwood. And then there's Cameron Hayes. God. Serious. I mean, I'm serious as a heart attack. I always thought, you know, I'd tell guys he's like one of the best hunters I know. And he's an awesome dude, but he could have went with Clint if they were the same age and went down there and he had a career in Hollywood because honestly, there's nobody cooler than Cameron Hayes because you just had that mantra. Because and after you walked away from that, I'm like, oh, I probably should be just tanning. And you dressed well too. Like I always had the same clothes I probably wore since 9th grade, right? They didn't change. They were just jeans and a button-up shirt, just like I am today. Same hairstyle. You had different hairstyles at times. Wow. You were wearing the I didn't even know what designer was. I didn't even know what it was, but I mean, you had it going on. And I just like, I need to pick up my game.
I didn't look like Rob Lowe.
Why am I working out? I need to do what Cam's doing. But anyway, that's just a side note. But Back to Roy. So we're dropping in there and we get to that carcass and, we load up all that meat and we split that elk right down half. And I mean, we're having to help each other up. We got neck meat, back straps, tenderloins. We got all the scraps. We split it down the middle and we got a hind quarter and a shoulder apiece. We're heavy.
It's a big load.
We're heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm young. I got vinegar, in my veins. I mean, I got it going on. And so we go and we get to the base of the hill. And Roy just instantly, we hit that grade. I was with him to the grade. And, if you've ever been in the Kiger Gorge, I'll say it. We hunted that as
legit
kids. If you've ever been in the Kiger, I think it's 3,500 feet from top to bottom.
Yeah.
There's no trails. It's marbles. It's volcanic rock.
It's rough
There's
country.
no soil. It's sagebrush. It's wire. It's crap. It's hard to traverse. And we start up this straight up and down hill. We're going to go straight up and out the what we used to call the mouse trap. We're going to go out the mouse trap with this thing. And
that's a pole.
It's a pole. And I look up and Roy's 50 yards ahead of me. Another 300 yards, Roy's 150 yards ahead of me. Pretty soon, Roy's 200 bloody yards ahead of me. And as the hardest thing I could do to say, Roy, buddy, you got to take a break. Just let me catch up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, there's no way.
Right.
I mean, what is wrong with me? Then you start second guessing yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's like when we were up there, hunting brown bear.
Yeah.
Roy could pick those snow machines up because we'd get them stuck. We'd roll them. Here comes Roy. He just picks it up and puts it back on hard snow and goes, look, I don't care. I don't want to hear how you wreck. I just don't want you to do it anymore.
Yeah, he told Nate Simmons he was the worst snow machine rider he's ever seen. Because that country,
and Roy was such a good teacher, right?
But that country,
he just loads you guys on the snow machines because Nate. I get there, Nate is road rashed on the side of his face. I can see his collarbones road rash. He's all down, and I'm like, Nate, what happened? He goes, "This is the 1,000 ways to die."
Yeah, and it's not just like pretty flat snow machining. It's this country was insane.
Well, that happened on the lake when you guys, because Roy just. Nate had never been on a snow machine, right?
Yeah.
So they start out across that lake and it's hard ice, and they get to going and Nate's like, it just started to tip over. And he goes, I just thought it couldn't be doing this. It's a snow machine, right?
Yeah.
He didn't know he had to lean with it like a bike.
I know.
And
it's
so
a
he
workout.
just goes over and he was pinned with it. So he's sliding out across the ice,
We left him in a cabin. His snow machine broke down. And so we took off and we said, okay, and that Hayes River cabin way up there. It's like 150 miles from anywhere.
Right.
And you said, okay, we'll send the plane after you. And it was like a days. And we were off. I killed a bear. We were back at the other cabin. Nate thought we left him. And he's like, is anybody coming to get me back here? And that's just, that country.
Okay, you got to tell the story about you guys up there at the top. When Roy took you up because there was so much snow. So that was a record year. That was 2012.
Yeah, we could get anywhere.
Record snow year. So Roy was like,
New
Roy.
country.
New country. Adventure, right?
Yeah.
I could go where I've never been.
Right.
Well, he took you up to a place that you guys couldn't get out of because you had to switch back up and you got to go straight down with those snow machines. It's not like you can go over there, go over there.
No.
It's a straight shot down.
Yeah. It's we were at the top of this mountain that normally you'd never be able to get to.
Right.
But because of the snow, we could. And it was hard getting there. There's these big holes and you'd have to lean into the hill with the one ski and be going full speed just to get past that hole. Otherwise you'd get sucked down in it.
Right.
You know how it goes.
Oh yeah.
And so we somehow got all the way up to the top of this mountain, this big mountain there. And we're looking for, new country. Hey, promised land. Are we going to get to where we've never been?
Right.
Roy had never been. He's hunting up there all the time. So we're at the top of that mountain. And what we'd do is Roy would go first and he'd go down and then you'd just be watching. And however long it took him to come out of the bottom and how small he was, that's how far the drop was.
Right. Oh,
and so
yeah.
He dropped off that mountain and we're sitting up there watching and it's like, nothing. Finally, I don't know how long it was, but there's a little dot that comes out. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so far. This is the biggest drop. And Nate goes, I'm not doing it. I can't do this. And I said, well, you can't go back that way.
No, I know.
I said, you have to. And he goes, oh, I don't know if I can do it. And I said, all right, well, let me just go down. You follow me, just hang on. And so I go down.
Didn't you go, look, So if I don't make it, tell my wife and my kids I love them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Nate was all excited to show me what you guys came off of.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And literally, it's Mount Everest.
Yes,
it's literally Mount Everest. I mean, it's like McKinley up there, but it's not McKinley, but it's close to it.
You don't know if you're going to make it. And so I drop off, go down, I get to Roy, and he's like, we're looking way up there, Nate. And he's, it's a long way up there. And Roy's like, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. He says he can't do it. He goes, well, he has to do it. I said, I know. I told him. And I said, I'm worried that we're going to lose a snow machine because the river was off to the one side. I mean, a complete drop off to the river. And I go, let's go over, line these snow machines up just in case he comes off and that snow machine goes bombing towards the river, we can stop it.
Right.
And we don't lose the snow machine. So Nate saw us go line up over by that cliff over there on the right. And he's just like, they think I'm coming off this thing. He knew what we were doing.
He told me, he goes, this is the 1,000 Ways to Die show.
Oh,
he goes, he's just petrified. You know, and like when I'm going to admit, I've never rode a snow machine, but I grew up on a motorcycle and, quads and grew up on a farm. So, I mean, you just knew how to operate everything. Yeah. And, when I got there, Roy told me all those stories, that when we were all in the cabin that first night, he's like, I think he even said that. He goes, look, I just want them to stop wrecking. I don't care how they do it. I just don't want them to do it anymore.
I know.
I don't want to hear about it.
I got pictures of me with mine upside down and just stuff everywhere. And it's like, God.
But, I could see Nate was just petrified.
He was.
Yeah. And so
he's the toughest kid too.
I mean,
or not a kid. Now he's a man, but he's always been so freaking tough in the lower 48.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. But I mean, outside of a machine,
but up there, it's different.
Well, he's on a machine. I mean, there's no fear in Nate. Put him on 2 feet.
He's a great
He's
bow
going to
hunter.
hunt the best backcountry there is. He's one of the best bow hunters I know. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we've met a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, by far, Nate Simmons is one of the most humble, kind-hearted kids. I got to tell you something else. When I called him about the Kodiak trip, it wasn't probably 3 days later, Nate's mom calls me. And she goes, Wayne, I need to know everybody's name that is going on this trip. Mm-hmm. And I was like, because I didn't know Nate's mom. I think I'd maybe met her once. And I'm thinking, okay, is somebody going to get in trouble here? She doesn't want her son around somebody that I'm taking?
To pray, probably, right?
It was what it was.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I'm going to pray I need to pray specifically for every one of you for safety. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I told Nate, I go, how are you so blessed to have a mom like this?
Yeah, great family.
Great family. His dad was so awesome. But anyway, Nate, I remember, Nate Simmons came into the bow rack. He was playing baseball at LCC. Him and Matt Gustafson, Brandon Davis. I mean, they were all on that baseball team.
Good team.
And Nate was kind of like a Wyatt Seabright.
Yeah.
He was. I mean, he was at a different level and just driven, and loved every minute of it. Loved it so much that there's no way you were going to keep him out of a career.
Right.
And, Hoyt guys got together for a sales meeting. This has been, I think, 3 years ago, and they were discussing TV, who they should sponsor, or is it TV, we're sponsoring, Outdoor Channel and everything. So they had this vote, of who had the best show, on TV, and Nate Simmons won unanimously. Yeah. Not one Hoyt rep voted for anybody else but Simmons.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive. And, this is a giant accomplishment in itself because when you watch Nate's stuff, it's just different level. It's next level stuff.
He's so good.
He's so passionate. He puts all his heart into it. One of the best bow hunters you'll ever meet. Comprehensive about every single step of it. If you went with Nate, he's going to know the whole law. Whether it's federal law for filming or, fly times, it doesn't matter what it is, equipment restrictions, Nate knows it. Yeah. He's
quiet and so smart so tough.
Well, he was an electrician. He walked away from career as an electrician. Yeah. To go to work for Eastman's. Yeah. As a cameraman the beginning. He was your cameraman, wasn't he? Right. Mm-hmm. Just incredible dude. But anyway, I could, but Nate, that was, and so Nate was excited because when I showed up, you were done. You'd already killed 2 bears. Yeah. And so, Nate was like, oh boy. You're going to get your eyes. And I got to tell you, the first couple of times, Roy would just jump off over the edge. Simmons would ride up there and he goes, okay, this is probably one of those drops. You're not going to like this. Don't hit the brakes. It goes faster. Just let it roll. Because Roy would give you any instruction at all. And Roy's just like, Roy saw that I could ride. He's like, oh, yeah, forget it. He doesn't need anything, but I didn't know, anything about snow machines other than I, had rode a bunch of different stuff. And so, yeah, you dump off one of those cornices. We went off a cornice.
Yeah.
And it, Roy's like, okay, this one could be bad. I think this one's got a cornice on it. But just stay back on the snow machine and don't get too far forward because it could pogo stick and then you'd roll. It's like, so you dive off of it
straight down.
And then you're in midair for a little bit and then you hit again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But when we spotted my brown bear, he came out, he was just walking across, but he was close to a hibernation hole, and we're ripping to get over there. And I had this snow machine that would just die. I mean, it would just die for no reason. Those machines knew Roy. He'd come back and open it up and mess around with a bunch of stuff and it would start again. So I was in this, we came around and we were trying to get up this hill and I was almost to the top and it spun out. And Roy comes back and he's like, how did you do this? I'm like, what happened to you not wanting to hear about how I did it? Just don't do it anymore.
Right.
And he goes, are we going to have to roll around in the snow? And I'm looking at Roy, and he'd been out there with you guys. His nose is peeling. His ears, he didn't want to wear anything over his ears.
Right.
And his ears were peeling, and I just looking at him. He's looking a little grumpy. And I go, look, it's going to be no competition. I go, you could just bury me out here in the snow. Let's just get this thing out.
Right.
He goes, we got to get on this bear. He goes, you can't be getting this stuck. I'm like, it died. He goes, no. So then we're opening it up and trying to get it running again.
Yeah.
Finally got it going and we're back on it and actually was able to get a couple arrows in that bear.
Yeah. What an adventure.
Oh, that was wild. But, such great people. I mean, that's like I said before, how in the world we were so blessed that we just landed in a place that, we could be around so many good people.
Yeah, I know. So many. Not just the toughest people. It's like, how does this happen in this little area that these truly legends. You mentioned Mark Ludwig. He was like his own special freak specimen of an athlete.
He was, and he was just. If you've ever known somebody, at his funeral, Nick, the pastor Nick, he characterized him as an otter, and I'm like, dude, you know him.
Yeah,
you knew Roy, and in his service, and I mean. I was just broken because, he tried it once before.
Oh, you said Roy, you mean Mark.
I mean, Mark.
Yeah,
Mark.
right.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, he tried to kill himself once before, yeah.
Yeah. And I went to Mark and I made him promise, I made him promise me. I go, dude, just call me. Don't do this again. Just call me. And Mark had it all planned. I mean, he thought it was what was best for his family. He had a couple life insurance policies and they would pay out like 60% even if he did. And he waited right up to the day that they were good. He had 3 policies and he did it. He thought that was what was best for his family.
I know.
And it wasn't, they needed him. I mean, and we all miss him. I mean, I think we were talking the other day, told a story about, he would show up and he was so much fun, but he was 12 years old. Yeah. And he was the most obnoxious 12-year-old you've been around in your life. So,
but he was 30-some.
Oh, yeah.
He acted 12.
No, but he was never going to be 13. He was 12.
Yeah.
Mentally. And so he showed up and he was just like, show up on a Friday. What are you doing tomorrow? Well, I'm going to go to this 3D shoot. I'm going with you. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. So he had to get mentally up for the trip.
I know.
And he took Beverly with him one time, and the whole time, he's rolling the windows down. I had this old Toyota 4Runner. He's throwing it in neutral. He's pulling up on the emergency brake. We're going full on down the pass. And he's turning the radio up. He'd stick his finger in his mouth and put it in your ear.
Yeah.
It's like, Mark,
right?
Just stop.
He was unbelievable.
He was unbelievable. And then he'd walk in and he's just like, he left a lasting impression with old Lisa. The first time she saw him, oh my gosh, he was just freaked out. Because he'd walk in the shop and he'd go, woo! He goes, he'd take his hair and he'd pull back. And he's like, yeah, what are you looking at? Yeah, I know what you're looking at. You're looking at me, and you're looking at me because I'm so bloody good looking. Then he just had that voice, and
big smile.
Big smile. He always had some kind of caffeine drink.
Yeah.
Couldn't drink liquor.
No.
No way, because he had Native American blood in him.
He was a mess.
And he'd tell you, he's like, I am not drinking liquor ever.
You thought he was crazy sober?
Yeah. But at the same time, that guy would show up. What are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, I'm pouring 38 yards of concrete. I'll be there. And he'd show up and work all day. Wouldn't take any money.
Yeah.
Would never, dude, he did that so many times when Mach 6 was the latest bow.
Yeah.
When I went to see him in the hospital, I took that bow in there and I threw it on his bed, brand new. And I'm like, this is for you. And this is because you have people that love you. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of them. And I don't want you to ever do that again.
Yeah.
And he broke that promise because he didn't contact me the second time.
Yeah. That was, he was.
But I love that man.
I know.
I love that man.
Me and Roy, after the first time we went and saw him, and he was crying, and he goes, I fucked up. I'm sorry. I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, it's all right. Hey, it happened. Let's, whatever we got to do. But just the biggest personality, I think probably still to this day. Mm-hmm. I mean, we both went to the same tiny high school.
Right.
And he was such a good athlete. He went and played in the Canadian Football League. Well, he showed up to our, we were going to have an alumni game against Lowell. He shows up there in a baby blue Porsche with a fur coat on. It's like, what?
I know.
We're out in the sticks.
And he's a pretty good looking guy too. He knew it.
Oh.
Because everybody that knew him, and he was a male stripper.
He's a stripper.
He's a stripper, and you didn't have to guess. He knew he was good looking, and he was. He was Mark Ludwig. He was just broke the mold legend. In every way. He was a legend.
Complete legend. But yeah.
To this day, it'll never ever happen. It's never ever happened. He would walk in and he'd mess with me so much that we'd wind up wrestling in the archery range. I'm a grown man and I'm wrestling. I'm 27, 28 years old and I'm wrestling. Well, business hours. He would come in and he would just like, come on. I know you want me.
Yeah.
Come on. And he'd always grab your head and pull you down.
Yeah, I know.
And he goes, come on, man, you got to lead with the head. Lead with it. And he just messed with you so much. And I was just young enough and stupid enough. I'd look around and people in the store supposed to be professional. I just couldn't take it.
I agree. I know exactly how that, I worked with Roth's construction for a while, and Roy was the same way. We'd end up wrestling under houses because we had to break out basements and do all this. And we'd be under a house, like with a sledgehammer breaking out an old foundation, and then just start wrestling. And we're just, headlocks. And of course, he was so strong. I was like a rag doll, but we had some pretty good fight. Then you get mad sometimes. You're like, are we going to fight?
I'd get mad at Ludwig. Yeah. And he'd just laugh. And I just get madder, but he's just like the whole time. But yeah, it was great. In at the Otter Crest, I worked with Roy down there because I could run a Bobcat and they needed a Bobcat operator, and all the beams underneath that thing were rotting.
Okay.
Because they weren't treated.
So you made a ramp under the...
We had to dig all these logs and everything, and Bobcat was the only way we could even get in there. So yeah, I went down there and worked with Roy, and then worked with him off and on little jobs, because I was starving to death and he knew it. I'm like, Roy, I don't have any money. Trying to run this archery shop. Well, come to work with me, and so Lisa would run the shop. And it was just great times, We were supposed to. They picked the hardest jobs in the world.
And then we would work super hard in the morning and then go bait bear. And just be gone hunting all the time. And it's just like, I'd have sandwiches and whatever we'd use sandwiches for bear bait. We're like, no, we're getting McDonald's. And then we'd go try to kill bear.
And you guys always had the same thing for McDonald's, right? 2 just plain
hamburgers, fries. Yeah, just meat in a bun.
Nothing on them.
No. He would have ketchup. Remember how he loved ketchup?
Ketchup, peanut butter, ketchup.
Yeah. Oh man.
Peanut butter, ketchup, hot dog, and a hot dog bun.
God, I miss that guy.
I know.
I miss that guy.
Know.
Well, so we talked a lot about the old days.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear for today's bow hunting world, archery world, how is it? I mean, how is the bow rack compared to it was back then? And how is the industry? What do you? It seems like it's more popular than ever.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's such an awesome time to be in the industry because, structural integrity of everything. I mean, back when I started, sights, bows, rests, everything broke. Quivers. I mean, how many times do we have all our quivers all duct taped up? I owned an archery shop and I had a duct taped up quiver, right?
Yeah.
Everything broke. Mm-hmm. Nothing breaks today. And everything has a lifetime warranty. Mm-hmm. And the equipment, I mean, back then we were happy if we could get, like, we used to grade our arrows and try to figure out which ones would actually hit the target.
Yeah.
And
the strings, I used to not want to shoot my string because it was going to stretch. Yeah. So it'd get dialed in and I'm like, I can't practice. I can't do anything. I got to hope that one more shot hunting at last.
Right. That's when we got into marking cams so much because, we would put marks on the cam because remember when I was building strings and I had those white goofy strings that I'd make them and everything.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We'd mark the cams and you could figure out, like in a tournament, like I was shooting a lot of IBOs back then and I'd watch my cams and like, oh, it's moving. I know it's going to shoot to the left. I have to start aiming to the right, sure enough. And I had it down enough to where like I could judge by how far it was stretching. That was in a 40 target 3D shoot, right?
I know.
Now it's like if you get a little peep rotation, and we didn't dare, try to, do anything with peep rotation.
No, and even if your serving started to
separate.
Yeah, you just like, no, I'm going to ride it. I don't want to even mess with this.
Yeah, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. I won't shoot.
We can't get it back. It's shooting good right now.
Yeah.
No, none of that. I mean, today, the strings we sell, the bows we sell, the quivers, everything, arrow technology, broadheads. Broadheads are just crazy deadly now. Yeah. The level of lethal capability.
To the Grim Reapers. Whoa.
Yeah, and at a different level.
That is.
And everybody and guys are just going to lose they're going to lose their blessing over me saying that honestly, there's technology out there that I think is corralled pretty much by Grim Reaper on mechanicals. In my opinion, it's my opinion.
Yeah.
But I went to Maui the year before it was legal in Oregon, and it's been legal. I think this is our 5th year that we've been able to shoot them. So I didn't know anything about them. I shot, Muzzy Trocars and Exodus, and they're fantastic heads too. But I shot all these fixed blades for years and didn't have an opinion on them. And so I went over there because you can kill a lot of animals.
Yeah.
And I tested a whole bunch of different ones. Oh my gosh. Cause you can go in a good day, you can kill a lot of stuff, goats, pigs, axis deer are hard to kill. And so I did some testing and I just came home with my head spinning over these Grim Reapers. I was like, dude, these things got it going on. I shot an axis buck. He can go anywhere. And it just stoned this thing. I shot another axis buck, a smaller one, not a good shot, just stoned it.
Yeah.
Not a good shot.
They cause damage.
And so, just that kind of thing, that's just small things, like that just made such a difference in the industry, and, it's just a proud time to be in the industry. And then so many new people. There's fitness people that have gotten into archery, because of, drawn by food and nutrition, which you've had a big hand in that, big time, because you kind of set the stage for that. Guys would come in and it's undoubtedly, men are prideful. Pride comes before a fall. I had to learn that the hard way.
Me too.
In life. Right. And, so I would hear it all the time, I'm like, look, I don't care what you say. I go, the message cam, and this has been years ago when you're just first starting, and the message he's sending, I love it. I go, it's fitness. I go, it's what I've always done being a backcountry guy from a kid, because like growing up, Dad always had the worst horses in the world, right? And we were backcountry hunt. He was a backcountry hunter, rifle hunter. But we'd pack up all these horses and go off to the Eagle Caps or the Winnahaw or, Strawberry Mountain Wilderness, wherever it was. We were going to pack in, put in this big camp, and we were going to hunt. I learned right away that there was no humor in riding on a horse and getting bucked off after the thing got kicked by another horse down across a bunch of switchbacks. You're 12 feet in the air and you land in a windfall.
Right.
As a 12-year-old kid. I didn't see the humor in that. I learned real quick that I had legs and I could use them. And my dad would always like, oh, this guy, I know this guy, he's got the best horses ever. He's got great mules and horses. And this other guy, I know him, and it was never us.
Yeah.
Our horses were the worst. We had rodeo, talk about, Brisbee.
Yeah.
He likes rodeo.
Right.
I hated rodeo.
Yeah.
It's not your goal when you show up and unload all these pasture green horses at a trailhead and all your gear's on there. And they just, you hit one yellow jacket nest in the trail and they're strung out. And my dad was just used to it.
Right.
Like he had all the stuff. He carried all his leather working stuff. He just put all the pack saddles back together and the saddles and everything the horses ripped off. And
yeah.
I was just used to it. It was like a way of life. I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
You wanted to use your legs.
So I learned I could walk.
Yeah.
And Dad, he'd like, son, you want me to take you riding horse? I'm like, Dad, I'm going to walk. And so I got to hiking and I felt great, and it just worked. I was safe.
Yeah.
I didn't get kicked, stomped, bit, anything,
Right.
And so we did the llama thing for a while, I think I had llamas for 10 or 12 years there, and they worked great too. But then it just got to where, well, let's just dig in and really focus on fitness and get to where we can just bone these things out and get them out, rather than monkey around with livestock or any of that. We can we can make this happen.
Yeah.
And as long as you got, 3 guys, it's decent. And, Brian Richardson and I have done some wing ding packs over the years. We're not that smart of guys. I mean, we just like, how far in here were we? Oh, look at that bull. Oh. Richard said, you ready to pack meat? I was like, I think we're like 13 miles in here. And, it's a long ways out and wind up at some other trailhead that's a 45-minute drive from the trailhead we came in.
Went all
that
the way
kind
across.
Of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, the whole backcountry fitness thing, I mean, guys would come in. I'm like, when you started it, I'm like, I love it, because it's where we should go. I mean, I think hunting's definitely cultural. Right? Our hunting's cultural, no matter whether you're here, we grow up around what we're doing here and it shapes and molds us and it shapes how we think and it shapes our passion for how we hunt. And you go back east and I remember the first time I won a morel, we'd sold the most. They had a regional target competition where if you sold enough targets, you won this free hunt. Well, I went to Alabama and they took us back there for free, and D. Weil and Nathan Brooks, and they were on the hunt, they were on this hunt too, and if you've been in the target, realm any amount of time, those are great guys. I mean, we sat around and great shooters, sat around and talked, nothing but tournament stuff. But I called the guy ahead of time and I kind of talked to him. And when I got out there, he because I'm like, well, is there any spot in stock? Or, I mean, can I just go rattle? Or, and he's like, no. And so when I get out there, he already had his belly full of me calling him like a couple times because I'd never killed a whitetail. I'd never been whitetail hunting.
Yeah.
And after the trip, I still hadn't killed a whitetail. But, it was kind of comical because he gets a hold of me and he's like, look, he goes, you ain't going to do no wandering around out here because you start wandering around, you're just going to wreck it for everybody else that's here, that's hunting. You stay in that tree stand, son. You hear me? You stay in that tree stand. And he goes, I'm going to put some corn out over here. And if the DNR come, he goes, you know nothing about it. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
And so I get in this tree stand. Sure enough, some does come in. And I'm not shooting does. I mean, you and I grew up. We don't
kill does.
I mean, we got cougar and bear and everything to feed. I'm not killing does.
Yeah.
So he comes in and he goes, well, what happened? I'm like, well, some does come in. You didn't shoot them.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I talked to you on the phone. I really want to kill a good whitetail buck. I'm not in. Okay, that 86'd me for the rest of the hunt. From there, he put me at a 4-way road junction.
Garhole.
In a tree stand. And like the first day he puts me up there, I'm like, there's just traffic. I mean, there's actual traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I doing? And he comes, he gets me and he's like, what'd you see? And I'm like, well, I saw a Pinto. There was an old Cadillac that went by. So I crawled out of the tree stand. I went down because I could see the old boy fishing at a water hole.
Yeah.
So I went down and I talked to him.
Yeah.
I was trying to get information out of him on hunting. But anyway, totally different, hunting style.
Yeah.
That I couldn't fit into, I think like, and since then I've done a bunch of tree stand hunting and it's great, and you have to be smart with it. And I've killed blacktails out of tree stands, but from my perspective, I'm this backcountry guy to think that, I can't I can't even feel like I'm anybody unless I've got a heavy pack on and I'm going in like we did when we were kids.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of old photos. We've posted them so much nobody wants to see them anymore. Of us packing in, you and Roy and Levitt and Brooks, and we're all, big guys. We're all packing in. We're going to be big bad bow hunters. But we feel like we have to traverse.
Yeah.
3,000 to 5,000 feet, every day.
Got to earn it.
Got to earn it.
I had that same problem when I first started with Eastman's. Is I would get back there and I wanted to hunt all day. And it's like they're worried about spooking animals, pushing animals here, and I get it. But I'm like, well, just leave me out on a ridge so I can glass or do something. I don't want to go back to camp. And I think I got fired one time from Eastman's, got hired back. Everybody was mad at me because I'm just like, I just want to hunt.
Yeah,
and that's
turn me loose.
All we want to do is I'm not really good at these rules.
Right.
Like, no, you can't walk. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's like, no, we're used to we're hunting on our own. We do what we want and we just go.
Remember the first time we hunted together, you and Roy were all running to the glassy spot. And we just slide in like it's baseball. And we're looking at the hillside because it's getting daylight. And oh my gosh, there's a buck, there's a buck, there's a buck. We're just like, I never forget, you're like, okay, that one's mine. And you killed that buck.
Yeah.
That's the power of positive, speech, basically.
Got lucky.
Positive thinking. You go, that buck's mine. And you killed.
It's right there. It's that one right there.
That one right there.
Yeah. It had the velvet on when I killed it, but it's that one on the left.
Yeah. What a great trip that was.
I did not. I mean, how lucky, I'll just say you grew up hunting here with your dad,
right?
In the Steens Mountains. I didn't know anything about backcountry. I'd killed some things around here, but this is way different than going in the Kiger. And so I didn't know anything. I could walk up a hill pretty good though, and I saw that buck. And so coming around the top, you mentioned the rim rocks earlier when you're talking about over there. Same thing. Buck was the base of the rim rocks, and I think Jeff Brooks was over across the canyon.
For you.
Yeah,
you and Levitt were together.
Me and Levitt were together, and so just by happen chance, I picked the right spot, and that buck was right there. So I go to try to shoot straight down before bino harnesses. My binoculars hung down on my string. Ripped my binos off, and that arrow went whatever, and that buck went out, and I didn't know how far he was, but I'm like, same as you. It's like, I'll just use my 50-yard pin. Right. He might have been 80 because it was pretty downhill.
Steep. Yeah.
So I held 50 and I hit him in that shoulder. You remember it broke his shoulder up.
Shoulder.
And then he went kind of around the hill, and then we got up
Roy
on
and I caught up with you, on the recovery.
Yeah. I got that one pictured somewhere where he's bedded, he's hurting, but he looks big as hell. Remember, I was like, I think you might have said, "There's your buck," and I was like, "What? That buck?
Yeah,
that is a giant buck." And I had blocked out how big it was, but when he was bedded against that rim rock, hurting, and I had to get in there and shoot him again. But he looked huge for us.
Right.
For us, we were like,
and he was. I mean, he was a great buck. I mean, it was. Those were just the glory days. I mean, we were just kids basically, but it molded us culturally as hunters. And, that's something that's rich because, since then I've had a chance, to hunt out of state quite a bit, and I hunted Kansas, Rick Carone hunted Missouri and Kansas with Whitney Friedman and Rick Carone. And, those were all tree stand events and stuff. But, when I was younger, when I went on that morel thing, I was like, if I got to hunt like this, I think I'll take up button collecting or I'll go knit a sweater or something because I just can't do this.
Different. So
because
different.
I just, when you're a kid and you're young, I just like my heart's just pounding. I remember I killed a good buck with Rick Carone in Kansas, and Rick killed a good buck in Missouri. But I was in that tree stand, and so in the morning, these kids, they're awesome kids. David Allen and Alicia Allen, they own, it is hard to believe, they own like 260,000 acres in Kansas. I mean, It's just unbelievable. I mean, we would drive for miles and miles, and it was all their property, and they're big farmers. But, Alicia came up and went to, I used to have that kids archery booth at the fairgrounds, and I was running kids through there, and she goes, "Well, I'm not a kid." And she looked like a kid. She goes, "But can I shoot?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So then she calls me and she goes, "Can I come do some archery lessons?" And I'm like, "Well, absolutely." So she comes by and I do some archery lessons with her, and she goes home and Jeff Dahl, he's a local guy here. I used to go to church with Jeff. He's an awesome dude. And anyway, he was with her, and she was actually, they were opening, she was a college music major, and they were opening for Casting Crowns, and she was on tour.
Wow.
So in turn of events, she winds up going back home, and her now husband calls me. He was her boyfriend. And he goes, hey, we got this ranch, and we have a lot of big whitetail. And he goes, how would you like to trade, a bow for a whitetail hunt? And so, I go, well, let me think about it. So I hang up. I call Whitney Friedman. I go, Whitney, because he'd hunted that part of Kansas. And I go, I tell him what's going on. He's like, dude, he goes, I'll pay for the bow if I can just go. Nobody gets to hunt those ranches. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And so we wind up going down there, and they had the tree stands all up, and they had some pretty fancy stuff for Rick and I when we got there, And Rick was just recovering from another round of chemo. If you don't know Rick's story, it's there's another incredible individual that I just fell in love with that you and I both have had the pleasure to know. Just an unbelievable individual.
Yeah.
And Rick was getting he was getting better every day, and just like nothing, like you just wanted to believe nothing was wrong with him. And he was getting so healthy. I mean, we just came from Adam LaRoche's place down there, and Adam just like entertained us for one whole night and put us up. And if you've never been to Adam's place, he's a great dude. Yeah, he's a great dude. And he'd put us up down there, and man, what a incredible ranch that they have there. And just watching the camaraderie of those ball players, they all love each other, and they loved Rick, and Rick was a catcher, and it was just such an awesome time for me to spend with Rick. But when we got there, first day we're up in trees, and there's just deer everywhere. But I got little bucks, but there's a fence corner. And there's not much trees in Kansas where we're at. Right. There's an occasional tree. They call it river bottoms. It's an occasional cottonwood, right? And about 9 or 10 o'clock, all the deer would just disappear. They just go lay down. And then about 3 p.m, boom, they're all up. Well, there was this fence corner, and there's literally 14 bucks go by this fence corner. I'm like, and there's a tree there, and it's about a half a mile. And so all morning in this tree stand, I'm like, I need to be right there. And so we move it that afternoon, crawl up that night, and there's 2 bucks fighting at a water hole like 150 yards from me. Everything I can do to stay in that tree stand. I want to get out and go shoot one of them. And everything, like Rick would just pound on me. Because Rick was dyed in the wool.
Stay in the tree.
Stay in the tree.
Yeah.
So, when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That old saying.
Tough. It's tough. Yeah.
And these bucks are just killing each other. I'm like, oh, I could go shoot one of those so easy. I know I could just slip in there and arrow one. And so then your mind starts wondering, what would Eddie Craypool do?
Yeah.
What would Larry Jones do?
Yeah.
What would all these top bow hunters that have always written, that you've read forever, what would Chuck Adams stay in this tree? I don't think so. So this is going on for like 40 minutes, and I'm just sitting there like, who am I? What? Cameron Haynes would be out of this tree. He'd be down there shooting these bucks. Are they going to break up, and is one even going to walk my way? Well, sure enough, they break up, and the bigger one. And I've never really taped him, but I would guess him like 165 or something. He's a good buck. And I would have shot smaller. I've never shot a whitetail to this point.
That's a great buck.
And so here he comes, and he comes down, he waters, and he just walks right up, and I just pound him. And I'd always watched all those videos, so I'd actually made pretty heavy arrows because I knew, I was going to be back there with Rick. So I had some full metal jackets, and I pumped them up to like 525 or 540 grains. Kind of heavy for a 27.5 inch draw. And I think I had my bow pumped up to like 75 pounds. And I just figured I want to shoot him through the shoulders, because you watch all those videos and you see all these guys shoot whitetail, and it's like nothing happens. They buck and they're gone.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And so I shoot him right through the shoulders and just pins
Break him
up
down.
And that was it. It was just awesome. And so I was like, wow, I just killed a whitetail, it was the first day in Kansas, and it was just great. And what was better than that was David and Alicia, and being down there with Rick, and they were just such awesome people, just such awesome hosts, and they're just salt of the earth people, and then, Rick, with what he was going through, it was just like good medicine. And when I dropped him off with Brian Stevens, I dropped Rick off because he was going to hunt with Brian in eastern Colorado for those mule deer.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick was just like on top of the game. I mean,
know.
men that we've lost like that were just, just princes. I
Yeah.
mean, they were just here, like almost like they were angels, and God just gave them to us for a period of time because he loves us,
Yeah.
and he just shared them with us, because that was just such a crazy turn of events on how we even met, Rick.
Yeah, it was just here at a Luke Bryan concert is when he first came here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turned into just like a great friend.
And they were just out at the farm, so
Yeah.
that's how he would come out and stay with us.
Yeah.
I think Rick came out 4 times, and he would come out and he'd stay for a month, and it was just good.
So easy to be. I mean, he'd just sit in here and just talk, just like part of the family.
Yeah, exactly.
just-
And if you didn't know Rick, I mean, baseball career with the White Sox, and then after he got hit with a pitch, crushed his wrist, and so that ended his career. And then he was coaching and mentoring kids, and had a big batting cage coaching thing going on, hitting practice and all that. And then
started filming.
He was
Yeah.
filming for Willie Robertson for the Buck Commander.
Yeah.
And he was producing that and pulled up sick. Mm-hmm. And he was already in stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is not, and lived the next 5 years, and really lived.
He did.
Really lived. They had that show going, Sheep Shape. And that's
Yeah.
how I think that's when he was out here, and I wound up meeting
Yes.
Rick.
Yeah.
And, I just loved the man. I mean, so talented. He could sing, he
Funny.
funny. Oh, the girls just loved him. He just
Heart of
had
gold.
did have a heart of gold.
Yeah.
Just such an awesome, and his whole family, his brother, and all his friends are the same way, just awesome people. But, all that to say, what's new in the industry is what's old in the industry, is that we're family. And if there's something that's new in the industry that I see that grieves me a little bit, is, there's bow hunters that make mistakes. I mean, Jesus, when he was in the middle of his ministry, the Pharisees and they, all the people, they catch this woman in adultery, and they drag her before Jesus. And they said, the law of Moses says we have to stone her. What do you say? And they're trying to trap him, right? And, Jesus, the Son of God, he's God. He made us. I mean, he's the creator of all the universe, and he loves us, and he's here as the savior of the world. And he's being asked this question. And, Jesus is drawn on the ground, and they go, come on, man, what do we do? And he says, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. And it started with the oldest to the youngest, but the oldest, the wisest, dropped the stone and walked away first. And when they were gone, the woman's still there, and she looks up, and he says, woman, is nobody condemned you? And she goes, no, nobody condemned me. He goes, I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. So, I mean, there's our example. There's Christ giving us example on how we should live. And, it grieves me a little bit, because the industry's quick. And I'm not going to say I've ever been without sin, because I haven't. And I'm not going to say that anybody else that's made mistakes in the industry. But what grieves me in present day is that we're so quick to kill our wounded. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of people, and we could go through naming them, and there's no use of doing that. And there's no reason to ever do that. But they're wounded, but they're part of us. They're part of a brotherhood. They're conservationists. They love the outdoors. They're attracted to God's creation. They're just attracted to everything we are, and they want to be the best they can be at it. And they make mistakes, or they try too hard, but there's no forgiveness. And granted, some of them are bad people. Some of them aren't good people. Some of them are bad people. We've had some in history that were doing it for all the wrong reasons. And yeah, they deserve probably what they got. They reap what you sow. I mean, you sow bad seeds, you're going to reap a bad harvest. But at the same time, there's some that, I'm just grieved because they're dynamic people, and they just love bow hunting, and, they love hunting, and they make a mistake, and they're just 86 forever, and there's no forgiveness, and we just shoot our wounded. Yeah. It's like if we are all on the same team, and we need to be, because hunting is being challenged, right? I mean, we're sitting next to a state that may be the first state that outlaws hunting and fishing. The state of Washington, they're in horrible shape, and Oregon's not too far behind them.
Right.
And believe me, if you want to get on the bandwagon of just killing all the wounded, yeah, just keep doing that, because a kingdom divided against itself can't stand.
Right.
And so this whole thing is threatened, culturally threatened, because somebody will make a mistake, and rather than saying, okay, yeah, I can see how that could happen. I honestly, there's probably not a hunter alive that, hasn't made a mistake, maybe unconsciously that they made a mistake, or consciously they did something that they made a mistake on. But yeah, we shoot the wounded.
Yeah.
We're the first ones to go,
I know.
That guy did this and he's a dirtbag.
Right.
No, dude, he's not.
He made a mistake.
He made a mistake.
There's people with malicious intent, and that might be different. But, as you said, I mean, when you've hunted long enough, I can think years ago in Colorado, you have to have your hunter safety card with you.
Right.
And I had changed packs, and I took all my stuff out, did this, forgot my old wallet that had my hunter safety card in it. So I got stopped by a game warden, said, okay, can I see your hunter safety card? I'm just like looking in my pack, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Oh my God, it's in my other pack. I said, I just changed packs. He goes, well, you have to have it on your possession. I said, I know. And this was, people would love to be able to say that, oh, I was a poacher, or I did this or did that, so this is going to be bad. And I said, could I call my wife right now, and you can listen, I can tell her it's sitting on the table, and I mean, I'm not lying. So I called and I said, hey, Trace, is my wallet sitting there? That stuff from out of my pack? She's like, yeah. I said, could you open? Is there an orange card in there? She says, yeah, your hunter safety card. I said, okay, could you take a picture of that and just text it to me?
Yeah.
Anyway, the game warden could have gave me a ticket.
Right.
And then I would be a poacher.
Oh yeah. No,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? And what did I forgot to transfer my thing, and I had it, and it was just an honest mistake.
Yeah.
That's different than going out and, some big poaching ring.
Right. Yeah. No,
So
exactly.
it's like, we got to be able to look at this,
And when the poaching ring is there, you're a criminal.
Yeah.
You're stealing from everybody. You're no different than any other criminal.
Right.
And a lot of that always came with, like any criminal, there's drugs involved. There's probably drinking involved. They're going out, they're shooting bucks at night, with a light, wasting everything. That's criminal activity. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
Let's clarify that. It's people that have made mistakes.
Yeah.
And they didn't know.
Right.
And then from then on, it's just shoot the wounded.
And I think everybody has, like, just like that oversight where, or you didn't sign your license. That's another one.
I know it. Or proof of sex.
Yeah. It's like,
or I've got one, we went, back in 07, Byron Davis and Brian Richardson and Guy Harris and I, we drew unit in Wyoming, a good unit.
yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And so we're
Ran a race
pumped.
there.
Yeah. We're pumped, and boom, we're there. And, we're hunting, and, Byron kills a good bull. I kill a good bull, and, Guy and Brian and Byron kill bucks. I was the only one that didn't kill buck, lots of bucks, but I just was like so focused on elk, and it was hard. I mean, it was a hard hunt. There was a lot of activity there because it was a type 9 tag. And if you know anything about Wyoming, type 9 tags. Yeah, they don't get to go back and shoot them with a gun.
Right.
You have all the local guys are there right with you.
Yeah.
So we learned the hard way.
Archery only.
Yeah. No more archery only. No more type 9. And so that's the key to Wyoming, by the way. That's just a pro tip right there. No more type 9. So anyway, we're coming home, and I mean, CWD was just something that had just came into existence, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't know anything about it. I mean, we're just stupid dudes that just got done with a long summer of work. So what do? We got everything up on top of my bow rack toy hauler. I got bow rack all over it. Yeah. We got 2 big elk heads up on the rack on the top of the toy hauler and the heads, and we're going across states. Mm-hmm. We didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know anything. I mean, this back in 07, it just clicked in. Well, they just had all these new laws, and I mean, we're breaking those laws.
Yeah.
We didn't know that.
Right.
I knew when I got home. Man, I scrambled to make everything right. I mean, we incinerated those babies, and we couldn't keep them.
Yeah.
It was a harsh fact.
And that's just, we can't be so quick to cancel each other and just basically shoot our own, as you said, over
Something
things like that.
Something like that.
That's just a mental lapse or didn't know. Maybe it's just an honest
Ignorance.
mistake.
Totally ignorance.
And that's different. So we need to be able to look at that because hunting, I don't know, our egos are so involved in it. We love to knock people down, it seems like.
Yeah.
And instead of showing
Lifting them
grace, I mean, I've been showed grace, you've been showed grace
yeah.
in life. It's like we should be doing that for each other. And I think if there's an honest mistake, it's okay to show some grace because as hunters with this smaller group of numbers, basically compared to the whole population, we can't really afford to eat our own.
No. And the thing is, we need to promote, ethical practices. I do on a regular basis. I've been involved with, Oregon Bowhunters now for, I think, over 20 years. Tomorrow we have our fundraiser. We're going to auction statewide deer tag. Last year we set a record at $87,000. All that money goes into conservation. And that's something else that kills me too. So governor's tags. I have just, social media is just loaded with, oh yeah, if I had that kind of, okay, this is the deal. This is the deal with bashing governors, guys. That's what your game hunting is worth. Yeah. Your deer is worth that. Your elk is worth this. Your bighorn sheep's worth this. Your antelopes is worth this. Why? Because they put a monetary value on it. And then all that money that they spend goes into access and habitat, creating areas for your opportunity and conservation. I mean, last year, we get a portion of that. Oregon Bowhunters is a 501c3. Mm-hmm. We bought over 25 cell cameras last year for OSP.
Yeah.
And proud to do it.
Right. Instead of bashing those guys, how about thanking them?
Thanking them.
Thank you for paying this much for that tag.
Yeah. And there's so many names out there, guys that just are proud to support that system. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they have money to burn on a campfire, but look what they're doing with it. They're supporting conservation.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. They could be on the other side of the fence. Yeah. For years, we have some history with Ted, Uncle Ted. Ted Nugent's awesome. He's such an awesome dude. He's such an educated guy. He's such a strong voice for conservation and for
hunters.
Conservatism.
He's 2A.
His wife has turned into just this totally awesome Christian righteous chick. I mean, she's just awesome.
She's queen of the forest.
She's queen of the forest, and everything. And I just love everything about Ted. But there's that factor out there that I don't like. Okay, would you want him on the other? Would you want Uncle Ted on the other side of the fence? No. Thank you, Jesus, that he is on our side of the fence.
He can rip anybody to shreds if he wants to. He's so good smart, verbally. Yeah.
He's well educated on every subject. I remember when we took him hunting when we were kids.
I do.
Yeah, and Roy set that all up.
Yeah.
Sutherland goat hunt.
I know.
Right? And the old boy that has all these goats says, well, you guys aren't going to kill me with bows and arrows. I've been shooting at them with my gun, and they're all wild as heck, and they're all just running off. And oh my gosh, we piled them up that day with old Ted.
Yeah.
That was so awesome.
Loaded up the old Toyota with those.
That's right. But remember, he had a laptop. Remember, he took us up on the top of the Hilton, and he was writing his
blood
book,
trails.
Blood trails.
Yeah.
We'd never seen a laptop.
No.
And he could type.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't just a hunt and peck. He'd taken keyboarding. He could type. And he was
Smart
so good
guy.
with his fingers. I mean, the dude's the #1 guitar player of all time, right?
Yeah.
So what can't he do?
Right.
But, he was just an incredible overachiever in every way, and he was just an incredible dude to spend a day with.
It was impactful.
So we're all standing there. And we've all got these goats drug up there. And remember that little tiny goat is running across the hillside, just sprinting. Ted just pulls up instinctive, leads that thing, and smokes it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And until then, everybody's like, well, he's just shooting those sights. We're just like these sight guys. And he just pulled up. He had that old Martin Gonza. Yeah. Gonzo Safari.
Gonzo, yep.
And he drills that thing. And we're just like, you got to be kidding me, right?
I know. He's a wild man, wasn't he?
We had a goat that was flipping around. He just put an arrow through it, and he looks around. I get this old video. I think I lost it in my fire because I had a fire in '94, and I lost everything I had. I lost. But anyway, I had this old footage. Ted looks around, and he's like, does anybody care if a firearm goes off around here? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm sitting there with my camera, and he pulls up, and he's
carrying.
packing. He's carrying.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was. He pulls out, and he goes, he dumps this whole clip into this goat. I was just like, okay, this is next level stuff, you know, because we're just these kids. I mean, we couldn't have been 26, 27 years old at that time. How old were you? 22?
Yeah, young. Yeah,
young.
22.
You had your old blue Toyota with an arrow for an antenna.
Yeah, that was an 88 pickup.
That was an 88.
Yeah.
I had a 92 4Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had to be right in there, 92 Pro, because that's probably new when you got it, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was touring with the damn Yankees.
Yeah.
Because that's the first time, I think, because it was the first time he was out. We got to go to the show, and it was just awesome. He came to the bow rack.
Oh, I know. I still got those pictures, obviously. You've seen.
Levitt and Brooks and I are up there, and we got the whole range full of people. And of course, they're not bow hunters. Most of them are just Ted fans, right?
Rock fans.
Rock fans, yeah. And so when he said, okay, he goes, I'll sign whatever you got to sign. Jeff and Dwayne and I, we have our feet on the targets, and we've got just like a regular table, and it's flipped over, and we're trying to hold people back. And I stood up like 3 times and said, look, everybody's getting squished up here. You got to take a step back. And I remember afterwards, Ted's just kind of like, well, if you ever do an event again and you have somebody of my caliber, he goes, you got to hire security.
Right.
He goes, because it could have went really, he goes, that's when bad things happen. He goes, it could have really got ugly.
That's a madhouse.
It was an awakening for, because we're just all just totally ignorant to any of this, But we don't know. We got Ted Nugent coming. Hey, did everybody come?
Such a big day for us as young bow hunters.
It was fun.
I did remember that kid's name, Derek Carlton.
Oh, Derek Carlton. Oh, yeah. No, so Derek's a hot rod.
Yeah, so he's always taking great photos. So these are these young guys.
Derek takes a lot of other people that are successful too.
Right. He's always out.
Yeah.
So it's like you get those guys, they're kind of like us back, probably even better than we were.
Evan Cunningham's another one.
Yeah.
He's guiding now, and he's good fisherman, good hunter, fishing. Yeah. I still want to take you fishing sometime. I mean, I don't hardly get out anymore, but I part-time guided, when I was younger, when I was going to college, and did it for like 7.5 years, and I just used to fish all the time. But when I bought the shop, Guillotine, still got my boat, all my gear. I love it. It's fun. It can get crazy addictive, and anymore, I don't care about fishing, and I really don't. I like to take people that have never fished before. Like I went a couple weeks ago and I took old Jobin Jarvis and Cameron Saxon. And Saxon caught steelhead before, but Jobin really never had, So it was a good eye opener. We just smashed them.
Oh, man.
I've got a river that I fish and it's got private put-ins on it. And it's just selfish because the owner and I are, he's a good brother. And he lets me fish. And
sounds fun.
It is incredible. And they're all natives and they just tear you to shreds. It's the steelhead anyway. And
I like killing bulls.
Yeah, I know. I do too. And when it came, people always ask me like, dude, you used to fish all the time. And I'm like, yeah. No, I still hunt.
Yeah.
Because, if you had to weigh that scale, I mean, them scales are going to be tipped, pretty hard.
How is the, the influence? Now it seems like bow hunting is kind of a cool thing now.
Right.
Back in the day, there were some bow hunters, but not very many.
Right.
Now it seems like, I guess with Rogan, bow hunting.
Joe's made incredible impact.
Jocko, all these kind of big names. And it's like being a bow hunter is cool. Yeah. How has that impacted you?
Well, we thank you for that because, you've gotten those guys in and you're the influence, and and I think Adam Greentree had some influence with those guys too, and just really, got a lot of people into bow hunting. But, guns. When I was a kid in high school, everybody had a gun on their gun rack.
Yeah, I did.
We sold guns out of our lockers. We'd trade guns. Every shop class and metals class, we had a gunsmithing metals class. It was part of the program.
I would take it to school because I'd go hunting after school. So the gun was in my truck.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so we're in a different world now, and so now, archery's cool. Archery's, still probably by far, socially acceptable because everybody thinks archery's, and it is. Archery's cool in every way. It's part of us. It's in our ancestry. No matter who you are, it's in your DNA. Mm-hmm. No matter who you are, archery's in your DNA. Basically, I think Donnie Vincent, one of his, Who We Are, I think I love that video.
Yeah.
He did such a good job with that video. And it's like, it's part of us. You can't, it's like candles or a fireplace in a house. I mean, we don't need them, right? We have electricity. You know, we have gas to heat with. You know, you don't need a fireplace in a house. I mean, you have furnace, right? But you still have fireplace. Why?
Yeah.
You know, why do you have candles? I mean, you have lights. You know, why do you need candles? Well, it's part of your DNA.
Right.
You know, women go wild over candles. I mean, Lisa, my wife, I love her to death. She's this total sunshine in every way. She sells candles at our shop. I give her the hardest time about that for a long time, you know, but unbelievable how many dudes buy candles.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just, like you said, it's
part of you.
written in us.
And so that's part of archery. And so with that, I mean, you can't beat that out of you.
Right.
You know, it's just a part of us. And so, yeah, it's entrenched with us. So yeah, it's growing. There's an amazing amount of people that want to know where their food comes from, you know, and I was lucky. I grew up on a farm. My dad used to brag. He was like a foodie before there was ever foodies. My dad went through the Depression. And if you've ever been around, you know, old boys that have been through Depression, we're losing them and there's not very many around anymore.
Right.
It changed those people. I mean, they knew what hunger was. They knew what having no money was like. You know, it taught them hard work and dedication. And they canned and they did food storage. And so I grew up with canning and food storage.
Right.
And so
It's kind of coming back now.
It
Just
is.
like that, where your food comes from, what your meat has gone through before it makes it to your plate.
Right.
And then I think we've had really good people explaining the process. Like Rogan does a good job of explaining the hunting process, why it's important, what it entails. And that's projecting that information out to, you know, however many millions listens to his podcast.
Right.
So we've had media kind of on our side of telling this good story.
He's the number one media in the world.
Right.
So what an effective voice that is.
Because
Good
before,
grief.
when we first started, it was like you'd write in a hunting magazine or read a hunting magazine. Well, that's just other hunters reading it.
Right.
It's nobody new reading it.
Yeah.
So now we have this medium with Rogan's podcast and others and other media that's people who don't hunt are like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
In the last 3 years, I bet I've had over 150 people come in the store, buy a bow, and tell me that they saw you and Rogan talking about bow hunting, and then they watched Joe talk about elk hunting, and you know, and his whole, you know, diet and lifestyle and everything with wild game, and they want to do it. I watched a Rogan podcast. I listened to a Rogan podcast. I want to do this. I want, you know, and so what an influence that's been.
Yeah.
You know, and it just sparks what's already there.
And those 150 people, who knows who they're talking to about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's how it grows. But yeah, it's been pretty special to see, because now when you say you're a bow hunter, it's just like, oh, that's cool. Tell me more about it. You know,
Right.
Instead of being shunned or whatever for being a hunter or being like part of this outdated tribe, basically. It's like bow hunting is now kind of more socially acceptable, as you said.
Right. Yeah, no, and it is. And honestly, you know, as far as like the future looks bright for archery. I mean, because we, outside of the old biases, you know, there is some old biases there. And I think, a couple of years ago, you know, with Oregon Fish and Wildlife, I love working with those guys and everything, but I think that there's just some deep-rooted biases on archery, you know, and it's always going to be there. You know, you can't help that. You know, there's just guys that are opinionated, you know, and I've, you know, ever since I started you bow hunters, you know, my dad,
Yeah.
when I started bow hunting, I mean, he was not thrilled with me, you know, because dyed in the wool, you know, very prejudiced against bow hunting. They get out there first. And, you know, he was old school and, you know, they are wounded animals and just all the old cliches, you know. And when I brought that buck home, he came and I got to tell this story. So Brooks and we come rolling in. I think I dropped Jeff off and I had that buck in the back of the truck. Well, like 3 years before that, him and I were supposed to go to the Snake on a rifle hunt. And I drew the tag. Dad got sick. He gave me this mule. He had this mule. Talk about bad stock. So I go on Cow Creek, and I'm going to go up over, you know, I went up over Raleigh Gulch, which is straight up into Deep Creek.
Right.
Well, you know, I get this mule unloaded, and things just started really bad from the start. And I get up on top, and I hunted for a couple days, and there was a bunch of pressure up there. I wasn't really seeing any elk, so I'd spotted some elk across Cow Creek. So I was going to come down Fingerboard Prairie, and I had that mule. Well, I get down there, and that thing takes off and gets on top of me and starts jumping on me.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And somehow I get away from it. Steep enough, I got away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I get a stick and I got to try to keep the thing away from me. But every time, like, I could lead it for a while and it'd take off and it'd try to get on top of me again. And these old boys, I got in the bottom and it hurt me so bad. I couldn't go anywhere. My ankle it got on top of my leg and, smashed my ankle and I couldn't hike. And so long story short, it took me a while. I was there for 3 days. Finally, he limped out of there. Whole time, the thing's trying to get me. I get home, my dad's old school. Son, you have no idea what you were doing with that animal. You just don't know what you're doing. That mule's awesome. I'm like, okay. So fast forward 2 years, kill that buck, coming home, excited to show Dad, pull in the driveway. And he's walking in from out by the old barn there. He's walking in. I notice he's all wet and he's dirty. He's all muddy. He's dirty. But Dad worked all the time. I mean, he's always had his, old farmer overalls on and everything. And he comes walking up. And he's like, that's a pretty good buck. Did you shoot that with that bow? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you killed that buck, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, got any arrows left in that quiver? I'm like, yeah. He goes, go shoot that mule. I'm like, and I look at him, and I really hadn't looked at him, because I was all excited to tell him, and I really, other than I just noticed he was all wet, and I look at him, he's bleeding out of both ears.
Oh my gosh.
And about that time, my mom comes flying out of the house with her purse, and she goes, honey, your dad's been in a terrible accident. She goes, I gotta take him to the hospital. And I'm like, well, what happened? I go, now I'm like, what in the world happened? And he goes, well, I was going to ride that mule. He goes, I was going to go on a ride up in the Cascades. And I thought I should take him out and ride him a little bit. He bucked me off, and he goes, he got on top of me, and he goes, I had to crawl down to the pond, and the only way I could get away from him is I crawled into the pond.
Oh my. Thing was possessed.
Yeah. I didn't shoot the mule.
Really?
No.
That'd
Back
be tough
then,
to do.
you could sell them for,
Dog
chemical
food.
works or dog food.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what Dad did. That thing was messed up. He was like missing some links there. Probably a good mule guy could have probably got it out of him, but that was quite the deal. But that's my dad. And then after that, after I killed that buck, I mean, bow hunting was pretty cool, but that's how deep his prejudice was. I mean, he was very upset with me that I started bow hunting, and basically, it wasn't because I wasn't going to hunt with him. When he took me hunting, I was kind of like you and Eastman's. I mean, Dad would take me, okay, son, you're going to go up here, you're going to go here. I just take off.
Yeah.
I'd go shoot something way off in 10 buck two, and he'd be mad about it. One time I seen this buck and I just feed it over there, and I missed it, and he was really close to it. No, he was so mad.
I bet.
But I was just uncontrollable. I was just like, he was always mad at me, hunting.
What I love about what we've been doing lately and having you involved in the Lift and Shoot series has been incredible, just because, as I said, you're so wise and so much experience. But when we can go out to the farm and people can release that arrow and watch it
fly to that arrow.
Yeah, like Amala did the other day, and it went out of the camera on the top because it's arced so far up there, and then drops down and breaks that balloon. You can't help but love that.
Oh, bless her heart.
It raises your spirit. If you're watching it, if you're doing it, I mean, the gift of archery is something I think I love presenting to other people, and so do you. And I'm so thankful you've been involved in what we're doing here.
Yeah, yeah. And little Amala, I mean, is excited to see her, and Tulsi. I mean, you've got great people coming through. They're all awesome. It's just been an awesome opportunity to be involved with those people. It's a blessing, and for her, just struggling with the eye dominance and stuff.
Yeah,
it was
a challenge.
I saw you put the tape on the sunglasses. That was pretty awesome.
It worked.
Yeah, she's a great little gal.
Oh, I know. So smart.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to be a star. I don't know what she's going to do, but she's got a bright future.
Oh yeah.
And Tulsi too. Who knows? She might. She ran for president already.
She ran for president,
I mean, so smart. But now we got them. This is Tulsi's bow right here. I got to send it to her. But we have them. In our world and sharing what we love. And it's just like, that's all we've ever really wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not at the beginning.
People.
At the beginning, we didn't want any competition, but now we're like, no, we want to share this. It's changed our life. Let's see how it can impact yours.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's super important. And, gosh, if I could share something that's impacted my life, I mean, it's probably been about 4.5 years ago. kind of had a little awakening in my life. I think I talked to you about it one day on the hill. I think I ran into you, and I think I told you I was praying for Joe Rogan, just out of the blue. I mean, and I'd kind of had something happen, and I just kind of wanted to share with you. It's kind of a life-changing thing, and I'd given my heart and life to Christ early, like when I was 18, and it was just I already mentioned that earlier. It was a dramatic experience. And I knew I'd had a change in my life because I was the rottenest, worst kid ever growing up. I mean, nobody wanted to know me. I wouldn't be alive today, honestly. I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be alive today if I wouldn't have had that encounter with Jesus. And then, for my eternity too. But, moving fast forward, you can just get busy in life, and get busy with your passions and everything. And I had a neighbor, Carl Woolley. Mm-hmm. And a lot of mutual friends, and Carl's, kids were in my archery class, and he was my neighbor, and he had woolly logging, and he logged. We had some timber property out on Poodle Creek, and my family did, and I owned it with my sisters and my kids, and it was a big family trust. And so Carl came out and logged for me out there. And so I knew Carl, super good-hearted guy, just always a giver. One time he had a bow that fell off at one of his gates, and it was a Hoyt. It was like a ProTech or Ultratech. Mm-hmm. And he found it at a gate. It was arrows were all in it. Like somebody drove off and it fell off of their truck or something. They left it. We never could find the owner of that. So I was like, after like 2 years of trying to find the owner and had the bow up in the shop and everything, nobody ever came in and claimed it. I called Carl, like, Carl, you need to come get this, and are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'll just set it up, fitted it to him. Used to come to all our, when we used to have our big get-togethers and stuff, and, barbecues, he'd come to all of them, and just a great neighbor, awesome dude, hard worker, big logging outfit. And anyway, I heard I think Scott Whiteley, called me. He's like, hey, Carl's sick. He's got cancer. He's got colon cancer. And I'm like, oh wow, and just like a month before that, Carl called me on the phone and he goes, Wayne, he goes, I got a cougar in my backyard. He goes, can you come over and try to kill this thing? And I'm like, okay, never works, because I'm like the worst lion hunter ever. I've had it happen, right? But it's like cougar hunting's like trying to make lightning strike on command 30 yards in front of you, right?
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Yeah.
They're not always going to come to a call. It's not like calling coyotes or anything, so. But like a month before I heard he was sick, Carl, I'm over at his house and he's like, yeah, he goes, that cat went right through here and all the neighbors saw it and I'm sure it's on the hill right there. And of course I didn't call it in, but we had a good talk and just a super good natured guy. And anyway, I heard he was sick and then I saw him driving. And so I talked to Scott again, because I hadn't ran into Carl, or I should have probably just called him and talked to him, but, hadn't had any communication with Carl. And I called to talk to Scott, and Scott said, he's doing better. He's back to work. And so I saw him at Mathers getting fuel with his work truck and stuff. And so, some time went by and it was probably about 3 or 4 months. It was summer, 12, 13 hour days. I was tired. I was going home and this is where people are going to go, oh, I'm going to click this off because this guy is out of his gourd. But the Lord just spoke to me. And I mean, if you listen, if you seek the Lord will speak to you. And the Lord just spoke to me. And this was unequivocal. I mean, he said to me, you stop tonight and we need to pray for Carl. And I'm going through Cedar Flats, and Carl lives right there at Cedar Flats, him and Sherry. And I'm just like, I started arguing with God. I'm like, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward, and I heard he was doing better, Lord. And it's like, I heard he was in remission. I saw him driving the other day, making all these, I'll do it, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm tired. I'm going to go home, and so I went home and the next day, I'm getting ready did my workout run, everything's in the morning, and I did everything, got everything done. I showered. I'm getting ready to leave for work. My phone rings. It's Whiteley. And so I answer it. Scott's go, hey, did you hear the news? And I'm like, what news? And he goes, Carl passed away. And I'm like, okay, I got to go. I'll talk to you later. And so I did ask him. I asked Scott, I go, when did he pass away? He goes, sometime this morning. Okay, I got to go. And it's like it was a life-changing moment for me. And, I was like instantly on my knees and I'm like, Lord, I blew it. I blew it big time. He knew me. He knew me. He needed me. He needed me that night. He needed me there. He needed to know. And I struggled with this for the longest time. And I mean, I told everybody about it. And Ron Sowers, do you know who Ron is? Yeah, long time, minister, Youth for Christ. Just everybody loves Ron. Ron came in the shop, and I was broken. And I knew I could confide in Ron, and I got Ron off the side in the archery shop there, and I'm like, Ron, hey, I got to tell you what happened. And I told him the whole story. And he leaves. And, and I, about a week later, Ron comes in and he's like, Wayne, hey, I got some awesome news. I got awesome news for you. And I'm like, okay, I'm into awesome news right now. And he goes, yeah. He goes, that night, he goes, you were going by there. He goes, it's two friends of mine. He named them. I didn't know them. He named them. He goes, they were with Carl. Carl gave his heart and life to Christ that night right before he passed away.
Wow.
And I was just like, and it relieved me, but it also changed me. I mean, it was a stamp. It was. And so since then, I mean, I'm listening, the Lord's like, look, if you don't obey me, there's not going to be that many more times for you. Right? Because, this life is short. I mean, you're on the other end of the hourglass, son. You might think you're 19 and you may try to live like you're 19, but you're not. You're 61. And the only thing that's going to count is none of this is coming with you. And I've given you a lot of gifts and I've blessed you with a lot of things. And if you are not salt and light to this world, then you're no good. And you throw salt out that's no good, or you throw it on the dung pile, and, because it neutralizes it in the old days is what they would put. If you're not salt and light, you're nobody. And you need to like man up. And so, from that time on, probably some of the most exciting things, for me is my wife, and she's not much of a supporter on this, but I got into street ministry. Some of the most, they took Washington Jefferson Street and they cleared it out. I'd go down there and I'd print up flyers, pizza and socks, in the summertime. I'd run around in the morning, I'd go for a run. I'd go run, the butte down there, and then I'd run. I'd put out flyers and just like, hey, it's 7:00 Thursday night. I'm going to have pizza and socks and jump up. And some of the most exciting stuff I've done in my life is jump up and share the gospel with those people. And then I had just more of a challenge was Broadway and Olive, the corner there. They cleaned that out this year too because of the World Games. So Eugene cleaned all that out. And so there was no gathering. So I had a whole summer of withdrawals this year because, I did some individual stuff, but I didn't have like the corporate, because you show up at the corner of Broadway and Olive with 6 extra large pizzas.
A lot of customers.
And there's 75 people there.
Right.
And I call them the Antifa kids. They were kids. I mean, some of them could have lived in the South Hills. And you just go, hey, can I share this food with you? And can I share a word of hope? And they're like, dude, you do that? You bring these are for us? And I'm like, yeah, dig in. I go and I just jump up and share the guys. It's just some of the most, and I've got a different way of doing it. I'm just loving on them. I mean, I'm just sharing my heart with them. I'm telling stories. There's an awesome story, that it's a parable, and I jump up and I share that parable. And I roll it into John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever should believe in him should not perish but have eternal life. And I roll that into, stories on the cross, the thieves, the 2 thieves, malefactors that were crucified, with Christ. And it's just some of the most exciting stuff I've done. And now, I was praying, I prayed like a year ago, Lord, use me with, my hunting background, how can that be? And, Brent Murphy down at Hillside Church in Cresswell calls me up. He's like, hey, would you come do a wild game banquet for us and speak to our men? And I'm like, absolutely. And I just in Jefferson Baptist Church, I went up, they have a men's ministry. In fact, I did a sports show up there and had Nate speak, but I did a men's breakfast, and they have a men's breakfast like bi-monthly or whatever, and they have speakers. And I'm going to one tonight in Salem, and And they just asked me, they go, would you come talk to our men? And, so I kill them with, all our weaknesses on archery and bow hunting and everything.
Yeah.
And then I just roll it into my testimony and share the gospel with them. And I mean, it's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. And I just, God just moves in those men's lives. And it's just been an awesome opportunity to share, and it's changed me. But that episode just changed me. It imprinted me, and I will never be the same.
Is that what you told me on the hill that night? Was that what that's the example?
That involved that, yeah. But I told you, I really, I know where Joe stands. I've listened to his podcast, and I know where he stands on Christianity. But there's so many people that he's affected. He doesn't even know it, how he's affected them, for Jesus, and all the people he's had on there as guests. And, I really think he's going to give his heart and life to Christ. I really do. And he's a dynamic man. And, years, there's people like him and others like Kate Brown. I mean, Lord just said to me one day, who's praying for Kate Brown? I mean, who's praying for her?
I wasn't.
I was.
Thank you.
I was told.
Yeah.
Too.
That's good.
Because those people, really honestly, if we don't have love in our heart for those people, I could care less. They're lost.
Yeah.
They're lost.
It's a good point. Yes,
they're lost. And if they're not, if I stumble onto somebody in the woods, I remember a story that Rick Wilhite told me. Rick was a big high country hunter.
Yeah.
And Rick was up there in the backcountry one time, late season, November. And he says he comes over this ridge and there's a woman and she's not got much clothes on. There's snow on the ground and she is just out of her mind. She said, he goes, she's white. And there was a lot of activity going on, up in McKinsey there because of drugs and the hot springs and everything. And he just runs down to her. He's like, lady, what are you doing? She's lost, And if Rick wouldn't have showed up, she would have died. Yeah. And I know so many stories like that. Well, it's like that in real life. Right now we have leadership in Washington and they're lost. This is a spiritual thing. It's a totally 100% spiritual thing. It's a battle.
I guess a lesson, like with what we said about Kate Brown, you can't just pray for your friends and people you love. So you're a great example of putting that in action. Yeah. Well,
so the Bible even says if you just are praised by the people and loved by the people that love you, what good is that?
Right.
You have to reach out, to others. Oh my gosh, Jonah, he's like, dude, I'm checking out. I'm going to Caribbean. Lord, you can just let the people and Nineveh, they can just die. I'm not into preaching to them. I'm taking this ship. I'm going on vacation. Good luck with that. Right. Bad storm comes. They're like, he tells them, he's like, they cast lots, but he tells them, he goes, look, I'm your guy. Just throw me overboard. I'm ready to die. Fish swallows him, spits him up on the beach. He still doesn't, it's a racist thing. He like walks in there, he's all probably bleached from whale gut acid. He really looks like crap. He walks in there, shocking. He's just like, fire and brimstone message, like you're going to die. God's going to kill you, and they repent. And he's still pissed about it.
Yeah.
But it's God's compassion for us. Everybody for the lost. And the more you can have a heart for that, to me in my life, I'm passionate about archery and bow hunting. I want to help everybody, but with that, there has to be a message of life with it, and so incorporating that it just completes the spectrum, of everything.
With you, which each guest, we go down there, you help them with archery, as you said, but then you also have a couple of minutes with them at the end before they leave, and it's always
Natalie. What? Oh my gosh, I love her. She's so awesome.
She is.
Yeah, she's so full of vinegar, and she loves Jesus. She's shouting Jesus right off the beginning, but she loves Jesus. She's been posting scripture on her story.
She was reading out of the Bible the other day.
Oh yeah, I've been busy, but I try to catch through her story. But no, she's awesome, and she can affect millions for the gospel. It's just awesome people.
Well,
and there's a big revival going on in this nation right now, and it's crazy because I heard this analogy was so killer. They have a music awards where they worship the devil for 2 hours, and God has a revival, and it lasts for weeks. It's just it's clear cut. we live in a time right now where we have all this gain of technology, and it's just mind-boggling, what's going on in our lifetime. And my dad, was born in 1917, and he used to tell me, he goes, son, something's going on, because in my lifetime, I've seen things that no man has ever seen. Born in 1917 and passed away in 2009. And we used to have long talks about it, and he's just like, man, and he wasn't, my dad, I hope I see him in heaven. I mean, I had a lot of time to say goodbye to him, but my grandpa was a pastor and kind of an evangelist and a farmer. And my dad just rejected it wholeheartedly, and didn't follow that route, and actually preached against it with me. I mean, He made the statement, when I got saved when I was 18, I just told everybody, I'm like, God's real, and God's came into my life. And, my dad, and, God forbid him, for saying it, but, he said, I'd rather see my son get involved in drugs and alcohol than to get involved in religion. And it hurt me. I mean, but it was a good wake up call for me too, because I'm like, look, this is going to cost me something, and it cost my dad and I a relationship for a long time, but we mended it in later years, And we were close in the final years and stuff. So, but yeah, it's just taken me to a different place. And so for the time I have left, I mean, I really hope that, those opportunities will come, that I'll be able to share. And I've got a good little, I do a good little elk seminar, and then I just switch them, blindside these poor guys that come for breakfast. They think they're going to get,
Yeah, elk hunting tips. Well,
and they do. I make them. I tell everybody, I think I can make you better. I'm going to talk to you, and.
Well, you do take advantage of that opportunity with the guests we've been having coming through with Lift, Run, Shoot, and it's been powerful. To everybody else who watches it, it's been powerful, and I thank you for that. I mean, it's been a great discussion here today, and I'm honored to sit across the table from you. Yeah. We've been friends for a long time. Yeah. We've, been through a lot. Yeah. Been through a lot together, but it means more than I can say to have all these people come and learn from you.
Yeah. And I am highly blessed to have you as a friend. I mean, we've had a long-standing friendship, and you think about it. I've looked back on my life, and I have some long-standing friends, and I mean, I value every one of those deeply, and you're one of them, top of the list. I mean, it's incredible to have people in your life like that, that there's just such a giant blessing, friendship's something that, I've never taken lightly. I mean, there's one thing that we can take away from this world is our friendships, our relationships. And take them into the next world, and the next one's coming. It's going to be fabulous.
Well, I agree, and you owning the bow rack for so long, when that's all we wanted to do, hang out at the rack. That's all what we did every day, me and Roy, and then to transition into where we are in life now. Of course, Roy's not here with us, but we're still carrying on. We're still, living his legacy every day, and we're still impacted by him greatly, obviously. And I mean, the bow rack to me. I can tell you the phone number to the bow rack is 541-746-9711. I mean, I know everything about the bow rack because it's been part of my life, and it's because of you.
Yeah. And it became, a lot of years ago. It's like, okay, I don't care about making money. I don't care about anything. I just care about this shop and the environment that this shop creates. And it's about people. And when there was a period of time, I remember Jamie Coleman came to me one time and he goes, because you're a jerk. And I'm like, and this was early 90s. And I was shooting IBOs. I was winning some stuff. Won the Triple Crown, IBO Triple Crown. And I was just arrogant. I wasn't gaining any customers. I would go to those shoots and I would focus. I wasn't there to make friends. Right. I was there to win. And it was impacting my business tremendously. Plus, I wasn't there on weekends to sell bows and arrows. Everybody's like, dude, there's a 3D shoot coming up. Do you want to go? I'm like, I'm working Saturday. Yeah. And I switched it because, that impacted me when he said that. It impacted me. And I thought about it. And I thought, he's right. I go to these shoots and I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to beat everybody. And I got to where people were pissed and they hated me. And then I had some good friends there too, you know, the Tom Crows and the Bob Gentrys.
Yeah.
No, I love
Great
Bob.
shooters.
Yeah, great shooters. Guys that were just incredible. And
What
we
about that
still-
Randy? Was there a Randy that was really good too? Was it
Mike
Randy
Schlinkard. Mike
Brown?
Schlinkard used to shoot. Mike Allen was a good shooter. I mean, all these guys. Mike worked for me. I just kind of like was one of my stepkids. I've had a lot of stepkids over the years, you know, sons.
I remember shooting with some really good guys at those things.
Yeah. Alan Ruddick came, and Alan and Bob Gentry shot at that little Cobra. We lost our butt. You know, Lisa and I, I think it was 1996 or 97. We were going to put on this Coburg Super Shoot, and man, we advertised the tar out of it. We paid all this money, and we had a decent showing, but I think we were just flat at the end of it. It's like, that was a great event. We paid out a lot of money. You were involved in that.
Yeah.
You were in the finals. It was just
fun.
a great, fun event. And then we tank on it.
Wow.
We were such good business people.
Hey,
but
it's been a great run for us.
I look back at those old I dug up some pictures. I think I sent them to you, and I look back and I'm like, how am I blessed to be married to that woman right there? Because I looked at that and I'm like, oh, she's so beautiful. And I was like, that was me. How has she ever thought? And
that was like, you followed the, you know, how the
talk about the wife just for a second. You know, everything that the bow rack is as much Lisa and sometimes more Lisa than anything. And I mean, she's so much fun. I mean, when I met her, I was in a dark place in my life. And I just had 3 kids, you know, one by a girlfriend out of wedlock. I had child support payments, and I was in a rough place. And my oldest daughter actually prayed for me. And she said, Daddy, I want you to find an angel that'll love you. And I met Lisa a few days later. And I mean, we've been just like soulmates ever since. And she's brilliant. She's bright sunshine in my life. She has been forever. You know, I just love her. She'll give you a reaction every time. Like, and guys tune in on that. Like, they can come give her a hard time on anything, and she's going to give you at least an 8, if not a 9, and maybe a 10 reaction. She's going to react.
Yeah.
You know, like Brisby was talking about, he was extra large in the arms.
Yeah.
And she's laughing. She's
I
like,
know.
yeah, so am I.
Her personality's but back in the day, I think that's why a lot of guys went to the bow rack.
I see Lisa.
Because she was there.
Oh yeah, guys would come in and fire us all up and get her all bickering with me. And we got this bantering thing that we do. It just works for us. We banter at home. We're never any different. We banter all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, she's just so much fun. You know, I take her hunting. She's like hunting with a job foreman. What are we doing? Where are we going? You know, it's like when we get to hunting, she gets all like serious, and she's all like, why aren't we like, I remember one time we were in Desolation. It was in the burn. I've got 150 elk, and there's nothing between me and them but a bunch of birch sticks. And I'm standing there with one of these hold up decoys. I've already killed a bull. I'm trying to get her a bull.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure, and they're moving slowly kind of our direction. And she goes, all of a sudden she's like, what are we doing? Why are we just standing here? They're right there. Let's just go at them. I'm like, well, I'm just trying to get a game plan here. I'm just looking the situation over. I'm not going to rush anything.
Yeah.
She goes, just go right at him with that decoy, and I'll shoot one. And there was a bunch of bulls. So I'm just like, well, okay. And I listened to her for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So we go start going real slow, and nobody's really paying attention. We're getting up like 50 yards, and there's a uproot right here. And there's a spike behind it. We walk right by him.
Oh, man.
We don't see him. He barks and runs, and everybody runs. But that's Lisa. I mean, she's just so much fun to hunt with. And her and Nathan together, you know, Nathan.
I bet that's cats and dogs.
Oh, it's great. We were in New Mexico, and I'm the bad guy. Everything's my fault.
Oh, okay.
You know, if they're not coming in, it's my fault. Dad, don't call.
Oh, so they're on the same team against you.
It's like, Wayne, don't call anymore. I'm like, okay, we just called in like 5 bulls in the last few days. Calling works. And they're all just like, oh, you know, let's just stalk in on them. Let's just go silent, you know, like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, that day she killed that bull. It's on YouTube. It's just great fun when she arrows this bull, and, you know, and everything's, and then I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy because we kill a bull finally, you know, but up until then I was a fired guide, you know. But no, I mean, the whole swag deal. I mean, all the ideas for the t-shirts, that's all her,
She does great with it.
She got a hold of you and Joe and the whole Rogan Haynes deal. I mean, that's just so awesome. People all over the UK, Germany, I mean, France. She has mailed those hats and shirts everywhere. People will call from all over the world. South Africa.
Wow.
Australia, she's did tons of them to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild, and then all your guests that come in, they go, want a Rogan Haynes shirt and a hat,
She's done a great job. And she's
and that's
been...
all her. I would have never did that. I don't even wear I wear your stuff. In fact, check this out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I wear your stuff.
Original Beast Mode Bowhunting.
Even, yeah. But I can't, it's like I can't hardly wear my own stuff.
Well, you guys have
I just love everybody else's stuff.
I understand.
She wears it.
I understand. I mean, right now I'm wearing somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
But, you guys have been so supportive of me. I can't, and I know
Well, you've been supportive of us.
It's been a good team.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the time this morning, Wayne.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being such a good friend.
Sure.
And we're going to keep killing it.
Absolutely. Every day.
All right.
Man.
Keep hammering.
Lord bless you.
Every step I take, I move my truth. Every time they tell me stop, I use. Every comment, hate that makes my fuel. Gather up my energy and boom. I hear them talking, saying the way that I move is so reckless. That is a part of my mind I've been blessed with. Giving my blood, so I am relentless. My fault, they want someone to blame. They send their hate, it fuels my pace. I am Roy Tough, I am the change, the fuel in dirt. Feeling like Kim